Hello, everyone, and welcome to round two of the Risen Esports Divine League playoffs. My name is Coleslaw. Joining me on the cast here is Doctor, and we are here for a match between the undefeated Aqualix Esports and the four seed, the underdog of today, the Manitoba Bisons. We're in the winner's bracket, so this is not do or die. The winner advances to the winner's bracket finals. The loser will have a chance to earn their redemption through the loser's bracket. So, though it's playoff, though the stakes are high, this is a win in advance, lose and still have a chance to advance kind of game. And, Doctor, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We got some playoff action coming at us live. I was, pleased enough to be able to cast last week as well. And these playoffs have started off absolutely insane. Only one series last week did not go to a third game. And this week, you mentioned we have a losers bracket as well. And honestly, I'm hoping we get the same thing. I hope we get no two O's, everything going the distance, just giving us the most possible League of Legends action.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could be looking forward to here. It was a bit of a surprise when Aqualix dropped a game to World Class Esports last week. They'd only dropped one game in the entire season, so ending up going to three at the start of playoffs, probably not what they were hoping to do. So they're going to be looking to come back, get that 2-0, cement themselves as the top seed here in the playoffs. And Manitoba Bisons, they're here to make things interesting. They've proven that they are a team that can compete with the best of them here in the Divine League. They can pull wins off these top teams, and they're going to be the ones that kind of have a little less to prove, but a little more kind of ability to play free and wild and try and make things happen. That being said, we are already in the draft. We see some bans flying off the table. Nidalee, Set, and Lilia all banned by the Manitoba Bisons. Ash and Cassiopeia, and now also Graves denied by Aqualix. So nothing too crazy there. I think things that we'd mostly expect, but target bans that you wouldn't ordinarily see if it weren't these two teams playing.
Yeah, I mean, you're banning away some of the strongest junglers. Some would probably say top three junglers. You're really trying to narrow down that pool and make sure you're actually getting, the strongest thing available. Shen is the pickup. Probably gonna be River Shen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, we've seen Shen in the top side a lot, does really well into some of those other top lane tanks, but when you're banning away Nidalee, Lilia, Graves, like, it is very possible that this is just straight up River Shen, and I'm curious if Aqualix are just gonna roll with it and be like, "Yeah, we're just gonna pick our top laner as we normally would. If it does end up Shen top, it's whatever. We'll plan for that eventuality, but we're focused on the jungle pick right now."
Yeah, I think that's probably a safe way to think that Shen is going. I think we know that the Manitoba Bison are comfortable playing it in both roles, so this is a bit of a flex pick, but it's one of those flex picks where once you show it, it's more likely that it's going to end up going into the jungle because you'll see a top laner that can play well against it. You'll see something that kind of punishes the Shen, and then it really kind of gets forced out of there. In case we see the Senna coming in for Aqualix, as well as the Hecarim almost certainly going to be going into the jungle as an answer to that Shen.
Yeah, and the Shen pick, if it does end up going topside, is still pretty good into Hecarim, having that Spirit's Refuge to really try and cancel out that charge from the Hecarim and make sure that you're a little bit safer. You have the taunt to potentially get out of a gank as well, so you're still covered basically wherever you go. And Aqualix can still pick up like the Ornn or something to that nature that is really strong on the top side, doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, is super strong scaling into the late game, still kind of soft countered by the Shen, but you're focusing on the late game. We're seeing Misfortune picked. I love it. I honestly love the Misfortune pick. She's a champion that isn't super good, I would say, but has a lot of lane dominance, can really control a lane, and has been seeing a little bit more play lately, especially when you can kind of like sneak it in and get away with it.
Yeah, and you see it because we already have Senna available. And if it's Senna AD carry, that's not a bad matchup for Misfortune. If it's Senna support, of course, it doesn't leave her that vulnerable either. So it's a good way to kind of sneak in a pick. I think it's interesting seeing, we're used to Caitlyn being this dominant pick that a lot of teams prioritize. And with Ash banned, you would think, okay, well, Caitlyn's kind of among the next best available, but it can get overlooked here. Senna was prioritized by Aqualix, and Misfortune is going to be the answer to it. So those are likely going to be the marksmen in this game. Maokai going to be the last pick for Aqualix before we get into the second ban phase. And that's another pick that you can look at and question. It's likely to be a top laner. We know it is a top laner, but are we certain that's where this pick is going to go?
I think it's a strong top pick because it jives with the pick tank top mentality that you kind of have to have in a certain way, because you do need to wait for the rest of the map to be your strong point, right? Maokai can do very good weak side, is really good at just absorbing pressure. Even though he doesn't have an escape per se, he's really good just at taking ganks and not really worrying about going too far behind, because as long as he just exists, he's relevant. And he also does really good into Shen specifically because he doesn't have any auto attack modifiers that can be canceled out. Shen also, doesn't super hard win the lane in that sense because Maokai can wave clear so easily and so effectively. So it is really strong on the top side. It's really good into Misfortune as well, who is so immobile, who has no gap changers, who doesn't have any type of, ingrained mobility beyond the movement speed. So Maokai can either, pop the ultimate and then it basically locks you out of using the bullet time, because otherwise you're just a sitting duck. Like you're so locked in at that point, then you get just dogpiled by the rest of the team. So it's good in many aspects. And I think the Caitlyn thought that you had there about how she's, almost like the go-to when the Ashes band. I'm noticing a lot of teams just don't really favor the Caitlyn for one reason or another. She is still just as strong as she was a couple patches ago, but she's not seeing as much play. People are more focusing on like the Senna, the Samira, the Ezreal, which to be fair, Ezreal in and of itself is just broken as well.
Well, while you've been talking about that, we've seen some interesting bans. We've seen a Leona ban, expecting that Maokai to go top lane. And then we saw the Gangplank locked in, which, unless it is a very bizarre Gangplank mid lane, would suggest that this is in fact Maokai going into the support role.
Which is good because Senna, we can have the fasting of Senna, going for the support item, giving all of the gold over to the other member in the lane, which in this case would be the Maokai. It does pose, in my mind, a bit of a concern because you're heading into Misfortune Thresh, which is hyper aggressive and is going to want to kill you super much, like a lot, a lot, a lot. And the Maokai, while survival is their kind of strong suit as an end, they're not super duper tanky without items. So I think there is some wiggle room for the Misfortune Thresh lane to kind of run it over. But I'm really loving the Bison's picks from here on out. They're picking a strong early game jungler with high clear speed and just an abusive mid laner in the Silas who can scale almost infinitely.
Yeah, and this blind pick Silas, it's not something you're used to seeing. It's not something that's often blind picked because it has some lane matchups that really don't go its way. Can be countered relatively hard by something like a Lucian or a Tristana or Corki, not actually that bad into Silas either. The issue is that when you already have a Senna and a Gangplank and a Hecarim, and your only magic damage is coming from a Maokai support, you can't really commit to that against Shen Thresh Olaf. If you picked another AD champion, another auto attacker, you'd just be in trouble. And so they pick up the Silas and say, you're not going to pull out the hard counters. And in fact, Aqualix have to go with Akali, who has a skill-based matchup with Silas and kind of justifies it being a blind pick in a way.
Yeah, and it has a lot of, those skill ingrained mechanics and that they can outplay pretty much everything, right? Like the only thing I think you can't outplay on the Manitoba Bison side is the Stage United, right? Like everything else you can kind of, go into your smoke screen or you can use your ultimate to get in or out. And the only thing you really have to worry about is Stage United coming through and just ruining your engagement plan. But outside of that, the Akali does a lot of good things. 8Q though, they only have one ranged champion, and it's the Senna. That could become a very big issue as the game progresses when you have effectively double hook champions in the Thresh and the Silas, because it's going to make their sieging really difficult. I think they're gonna almost heavily rely on this 1-3-1 setup that they have for them, where they have the Gangplank and the Akali in the side lanes, split pushing into Oblivion, challenging the Shen and the Sylas to try and keep up. And if you do try to engage on that mid trio as the Misfortune Thresh Olaf, you can just get the Maokai ultimate out and just stall that completely and get away. So even though on paper it looks like a great team fighting comp, right? Because you have the Maokai, the Hecarim, the Gangplank, all of these things like just really tie together and just hopefully blow up this enemy squishies. But secretly, they have a really nice split pushing composition as well.
I think that's very fair. I think that's interesting way to look at it. I would think normally, it's intuition that you see the Shen and you're like, okay, well, you don't really want to split push into a Shen because he'll just stand united and that's more impactful. Like Gangplank Cannon Barrage is a good ability, but it doesn't have the same impact as a whole extra champion showing up in the fight with an extra shield to boot. But I think you're right that this engage is a little tough. The Flay can disengage. Silas can get into the back line if he's unchecked. He'll get onto Senna, and Senna is not going to be very uh, flexible in tools to get away from a Silas or an Olaf trying to get on top of her. And I think that works for Aqualix as well because the Manitoba Bison don't really have all that much damage on their team. You pointed out that Senna is the only ranged champion, but for the Manitoba Bison, Misfortune is actually the only ranged champion. And that makes wave clear for them a bit of a challenge, especially if there's a split push where the Hecarim disappears and might be looping in for a dive, or the Maokai roams off to the side. Silas and Shen are going to be a little more vulnerable. And if Misfortune dies, the Manitoba Bison are going to be unable to hold much. They won't be able to posture aggressively. Their team composition basically requires them to take a fight by going way, way in. Olaf, Silas, and Shen need to be in the thick of things. And that can be risky if you fall behind, or if things don't quite go your way, or if you're getting pressured in these side lanes. Having to commit to a full on fight can cause mistakes. It can force them, and it can make the execution barrier of this composition a whole lot higher.
Definitely agree with it. And we've definitely seen, compositions that are designed to just go in really fall flat in the past because one wrong early game move, right, can really decide the fate for the rest of the time. If you go for first dragon as a team and you end up, getting aced or whatever, granted, an ace at 7 minutes is just disastrous for anybody, but doubly so when your only form of playing the game is winning those skirmishes, because it puts you that much more behind. You also lose the dragon, and it really just snowballs from there on out. And so, with the composition, I think they spike a little bit earlier than the AQ team because they have the Shen mid game, the Olaf mid game. Silas is weird. I think he's strong 90% of the game. His early game is pretty atrocious, but once he starts picking up like that first item or so, he's really strong in the small skirmishes. And then he scales into big skirmishes. So I think it's really up to the Bisons to get control of this early game. Their level 6 is disgusting with that Shen. So I will fully expect them to make a play bot side. Uh, Hopefully before then, I'm gonna be honest with you. I really hope the Misfortune Thresh tries to make something happen before Shen hits level 6, but if they wait for that, I'm not going to be sad either because it's just so strong, and there won't really be a whole lot for the Senna Maokai to do at that point of the game to stop it.
Yeah, I think all of that rings very true to me. Hard to disagree with much of that. I think one last thing to flag, just think about as we wind down the draft timer here, is just how much power is going to be in this Silas ultimate. He has some excellent targets come mid and late game. And I think the premier one here is actually Hecarim's Onslaught of Shadows. That ability has high base damage and a 1.0 AP ratio. So Silas is able
Mhm.
to get those items going, able to steal that ultimate. That is a huge AoE doing a ton of damage, fearing everyone. It's just a nuke. And if he can connect a 3, 4, or 5 man Hecarim Onslaught of Shadows on a full AP Silas build, that alone can win a fight and win the game. And that is something that AQ are going to have to play around at all times. That's just kind of the Silas factor where he gets to use some champions' ultimates better than they ever could. Onslaught of Shadows is one, the Cannon Barrage is another. If he steals it from Gangplank, his AP means it will hit harder. And that I think is kind of a backup plan here. That's at least something that the Manitoba Bison have to play around. They can say, well, let's wait for Silas to steal one of these huge, impactful AoE ultimates, and we'll try and make something happen with that. We'll drop a cannon barrage on the Baron. We'll drop an onslaught of shadows on this dragon fight. And with those tools, they can try and make something happen. You do fall behind, but it's still tough to execute. There's still challenges there, and it's going to come down to how things play out on the Rift. So, with that said, we are going to wait for the rest of Spectator Delay to wind down, make sure that we do not spoil anything for anyone in the game, and we'll be back in just a couple moments. Don't go anywhere. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Summoner's Rift here for Game 1 of the Winners Bracket Round 2 between the Manitoba Bison and Aqualix Esports. We've got some interesting drafts and an interesting level 1 already starting out here. A bit of an invade. It's going to be spotted out by Pyroan. Similarly, a Sapling going to spot out Alados down in the bottom lane, but nothing too serious, nothing big. We're just hanging out.
This is kind
Doctor,
of scary though. He kept has absconded ducked. So if we take a look at Justin, hasn't skilled anything yet, but I think it absconded ducked into death sentence, which was just skilled up now. Could have been scary, but not going to come to fruition. So sorry for interrupting you, but that could have been spicy.
it could have been Pyron, obviously, paying attention. At this level, you're expected to not be shopping or texting or anything like that. This is playoffs. This is high-level gameplay. We do not want any of that here. Pyroan, fortunately, not sitting there staring at what he's going to build this. Sees the walk in and says immediately, I'll go the heck out of there. Don't want any part of that one. And that's the right play when you take Ghost as Hecarim. It's a good summoner spell on the champion, but does leave him vulnerable to hard CC. And Casey, aware of that, backs right off. And the only price they pay is that Trinket Ward. So sad, but if that's all you have to pay level 1, then you're doing all right. So, looks like we've got relatively normal starts here. Both junglers starting on the bottom side of the map, getting some leashes, and they're going to go ahead and just clear their camps as you would expect. No vertical jungling, no steals, just laning, jungling, good old classic League of Legends.
Yeah, no vertical jungling. We're seeing Olaf actually skip Krugs for now, which I think is a little interesting. I don't think you're too worried about the Hecarim ganking before you, especially with Hecarim actually doing all 3 bottom side camps. So it makes me kind of think Olaf wants to try and challenge at the red buff, or maybe help one of these top side lanes. Olaf does have a notoriously strong early game, especially into some of these scaling junglers. Not that, Hecarim's super scaling, but, we've talked previously about how he is a very feast or famine style champion. And with Olaf just clearing Gromp, running into the river, going left, probably going to gangplank right now. But I think that's a pretty tough lane to gank.
Yeah, this is in the middle, so he's going to show up. The taunt's going to connect onto the gangplank. The Remove Scurvy's going to come out. Wave's going to have to flash away. The threat of that gangplank, or the Olaf, sorry, just a little too big. Got some trades going down in the mid lane here. Reversio and Kept both rather low. Whichever jungler shows up first, likely going to get a summoner there as well. But still, a well-executed gank. Tiger Clown getting the taunt in, forcing some defensive tools from Wavesix to make sure that once Captain Starfall is there, it's just a free summoner spell. And now they can look to come back to that lane just a little bit.
Yeah, and it does give Scuttle control over to Snarfles, so even though didn't clear the same amount of camps as Purion did, still winning really nicely ahead.
Well, here's a gank in the mid lane. Nothing really happening there. Unfortunately, Reversio did back off, had some healing from potions as well, so by the time Snarfles got into that lane, nothing come of it, so just a little more showing on the map. He did get that top Scuttle Crab. Actually now going to go down and get this bottom Scuttle Crab, so Captain Starfall's going to get the double Scuttle start. If you're a jungler, you know that feels exceptional. It's just a really good way to kick off a game. Going to have a little bit of a lead here for the early jungle matchup, and part of that is because of kind of this weird pathing that we pointed out.
And it's actually really interesting to see how the Bisons are taking advantage
of this.
Here,
a teleport after the death sentence. Oswald going to flash away, but the play is going to connect, and that is going to be first blood. A huge commitment from Manitoba Bisons. They saw it, they took it, and they get the kill, knocking down Oshawott in one easy, clean go. And now it's back onto the Gromp. Captain Starfall is rather low, but I don't think Pyroan and Monster Mash are going to try and stop this. So they'll take their kill, they'll take their Gromp, and they'll get the heck out of here.
And worrying enough, the first blood goes to Silas. Like, the champion that can hyper accelerate this game by hitting level 6, stealing away those ultimates, sometimes even before, the opponent has access to them. And you just gave him 400 gold, 2 stacks on his Dark Seal, which he had gotten by just backing, right before that. And now what, is a skill matchup in the mid lane at a certain point is now that much more teetered towards Kept.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out just how well-timed that was for Kept, where he went back and used his teleport to get back onto the map and pick up a kill in one clean sweep. While I'm talking about that, we've got a bit of a scrap here in the jungle. Pyroan going to try to knock Captain Starfall's back. He's going to get it. He's going to get the kill as well. One last Q plus Conqueror damage, more than enough to secure it onto Captain Starfall's. And Pyroan now just going to have to walk out with Reversio coming in. Nothing that Kept can do. So it's a revenge kill. The Olaf dies, greeting for his rafters. And that's not too bad if you're Aqualix. I think that's a good consolation prize. Kills on Hecarim, pretty valuable too.
Yeah, especially when you have pretty immobile champions like the Misfortune and the Thresh, who are just waiting to be ganked down in that bottom side with all of the crowd control coming out of Maokai Senna. So yeah, you used Ghost, but one of the prime benefits of Ghost is its low cooldown. So it's really going to not deter you that much from going for different plays. You got the camp, you got the kill, you didn't get any summoner spells just yet, but that's fine. Oh no.
More trading in the mid lane. We've got a level 6 Akali versus a level 5 Sylas. Versio going to pull the ult in, but the Stand United going to come down onto Kep. So Versio going to leave, but they're chasing after it. That's actually a flash from Kep for nothing. Going to use that Akali ultimate to chase after and get the kill with the Kingslayer. That is going to be another one for Kep. A really well-played engage. Hit 6 as the Shen started to show up, and Reversio went from up a level to down a life.
Yeah, and that was something we actually talked about during the break in between Champ Select and the game itself, was Akali shouldn't really die unless that exact situation where they go in and get Stand United on happens. And so it's exactly as we saw, goes in, uses the ultimate, forced to flash away, Stand United comes in, and then they both burn flash to really follow Reversio. And with the stolen Akali ultimate, there's enough damage there to get the kill. It is a very heavy investment, though. They get double flash, Stand United, and the Sylas ultimate all being used onto Reversio. And something to note right before then is,
well, we've got a dragon fight. The Olaf just going over the wall and in. Captain Snarfles is a madman. He doesn't want that fight. He goes down immediately. They're going to get a revenge kill onto Wave 6. Pyroan also going to go down. It's Justin, it's Tiger Clown, it's Alados trying to clean up this fight. The Olaf may have died, but there's so much damage from Manitoba Bison. They're just on the same page. They actually pick up a 4-for-1, and the dragon is theirs. That came out of nowhere.
that was best case scenario there for the Bison. Is the first dragon gets started up, they are able to collapse down very effectively. Captain Snarfles went just ham baloney hot sauce, just all by their lonesome, taking the blast code over, trying to or dissuade them from taking the dragon. And even though they die, the rest of the team is far enough ahead at this point that they're able to really take control of the team fight. They use their crowd control very effectively. They're able to make plays happen. And I think part of what's happening is these kills prior to that, we're really starting to stack up experience and gold wise. Before that fight, we had an 0-0 Shen, we had a 1-0, and I believe 2 Sylas, and just everybody having just that much more gold in their back pocket, that much more stats from their levels. It really came together in that perfect storm dragon fight.
Yeah, and there were no ultimates. It wasn't a matter of wombo combo. I'm going to be interrupted because Wave 6 is very, very dead here. This is a 3-man welcome party to the top lane. They're just giving him a warm greeting, saying, "Happy Monday night, buddy. You're dead now."
Yeah, and it's another kill to this Shen, who is super ahead. 10 CS already, multiple kills. Like, this is quite as far ahead as possible as a Shen could possibly be, especially over Gangplank.
Yeah, you don't really expect Gangplank to fall super far behind, but it has been a matter of pressure. Tiger Clown has been all over the map and picking up kills and assists, been roaming the lanes and grabbing little freebies here and there, and that can make the Shen stronger. And then when you send your support and jungler up there to punish the Gangplank, there's nothing going to be able to do. There's just too much crowd control for one pirate man to clean with his oranges, and that means that he's going to go down, and this is getting a little out of hand here. We're at 2,500 gold lead at only 10 minutes. That's pretty large for this early on in the game.
Yeah, and one more thing on the Gangplank is,
well,
potentially dead again.
For him again. It's the Stand United onto the Olaf. They are going to trade kills. The turret just a little too powerful. The damage ramping up on the Captain Snarfle. Super, super hard, but it is a 1-for-1, and Tiger Clown gets the kill after Captain Snarfles goes down. So the gold is reset, and it is actually still advantageous for the Manitoba Bison.
And there's no TP available for Wave, so not able to get back and catch the wave that's being shoved in. Going to be losing potentially tower plates. More and more gold going over to the Shen. It's really looking bad in that top side, as we do see a mid lane gank just barely not connect. But yeah, I mean, things seem to be going really good for the Bisons right now. I mean, they're getting every single advantage possible. They have a Rift Herald in their pocket. Every lane is super ahead. Maybe not in CS differentials, which are really starting to evolve both in bot and mid lane. But if you have 5 assists or 2 kills and 3 assists, like, that's easily making up for these gold or these CS differentials.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate you see that these champions with just more kill participation actually not out farming their respective opponents. In a lot of games, you see, you're up 3 kills, but also 20 CS because of those kills. Where in this game, it's up kills but down farm because you sacrificed farm to get those kills in the first place, and that's what's keeping Aqualix in this. That's what's keeping this gold lead at a reasonable 2K instead of an insurmountable 4 or 5K this early on. While we're talking about that, and while that mid lane gank wasn't working out, I believe we saw Rift Herald get taken down. They're now going to drop it into the middle lane here. It's going to get plates, but not the whole turret. Dropped way too early for that. I think that's only 2 plates, actually. Kind of low value for the Rift Herald, but 2 plates better than 0 plates, and that's going to work in Manitoba Bison's favor yet again.
Yeah, and you definitely want to be able to get that down before plates. Not that it was in any danger of expiring after plates, but you don't have super high advantages. Oh,
We see the onslaught of shadows used by the side. So I think that's just a poke ultimate. Gonna miss the chains going underneath the turret. Reversio just gonna walk out. That's fine. No big deal. Just a random Hecarim ult. We saw one of those earlier and it didn't do anything. So no big deal.
yeah. So it's a little bit better. But like the only other lane to use the Herald really would have been topside, potentially to unlock the Shen. But because Shen has the Stand United, he doesn't need unlocking. Like he's totally fine just hanging out in that lane, farming into Oblivion, and coming down for these big fights. Like the Dragon in 30 seconds, or the next Rift Herald in 3. And Purion on this Hecarim has been spending a decent amount of time either in the enemy jungle or trying to get into the lanes to make something happen, and it's just not quite connecting the same. Like you can look at Snarfles, who's died 3 times, but
well, here's a death sentence onto the Senna. Oshawott going to have to use Flash Heal to get away. Justin actually needs the heal and the Stand United to survive the Dawning Shadow. That's a really solid play from Oshawott to get a reinvestment of those 2 summoner spells. You'd think for sure with a death sentence and a misfortune bullet time coming, been a kill, but Senna lives on and actually trades relatively even, but the pressure generated from that dive going to mean that it is once again Manitoba Bison's Dragon for the take.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what we talked about, right? Like, Stand United down to the Dragon to really make sure you get it. Tomato, tomato, they used it to save bot lane. As long as the Shen's down there, it's worth it. And so they're getting their second Dragon. They're going to be looking at a 24-ish minute soul if they can claim the next one. And it is going to be that Earth soul. So they're going to get the bonus defensive stats if they are able to claim it. If they also get it, they get the bonus shield to make sure that they're that much sturdier on their squishies, aka Misfortune, who is going to have to survive a good amount of dive potential between the Akali and the Hecarim. So these things start adding up little by little as that immobile marksman.
Well, we've got a trade going down in the mid lane here. Kept going in on Reversio. We've got double Akali ultimates going out. He's just going to turn his attention onto the Hecarim. Going to have to use the Onslaught of Shadows to get away. That's a really well-played fight by the Sylas. And here's a fight down in the bot lane. Tiger Clown really messing up this Senna, doing so much damage. The Olaf now on the way as well. The Canara is going to slow down the Shen. The Olaf not going to keep chasing. So it's going to be no kills anywhere, but a lot of people taken very low. And Justin now chasing down the Hecarim, kept back onto him. Kingslayer comes out, big heal, and finally gets that kill onto the pony.
Yeah, this Sylas is really a problem. Even if it's not hard winning the lane, as we see just more aggression out of Shen.
Yeah, I don't think this should be anything unless Oshawott stands too close. We actually see a flash burn by Monster Mash to get away. Captain Starbles goes under the turret, picks up the kill onto the center. Teleport starts getting channeled in. Tiger Clown goes down. Captain Starbles finds himself in a 1v3 all of a sudden. He's going to fall to Reversio, and that is going to be a 2-for-1 favor of Aqualix. Just way too ham from the Manitoba Bison. They had the right idea, but they went way too deep for it. On the bright side, they pick up the mid turret and they pick up the top turret for their trouble. So they lose 2-for-1 on kills, but 2 turrets, kind of easy to say worth.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the Tiger Clown getting a little bit too big for their britches. They saw how much damage they're able to do to Oshawott as, the tank. But you still need to be wary of these opposing, solo laners. Like Reversio can very easily start picking up a lot of kills and start scaling very effectively and doing a ton of damage as these mid and late game team fights continue to progress. And Akali damage is no joke, just as we know Gangplank is no joke. I mean, we saw Bin in Worlds just
Oh,
absolutely
here's a fight on the blue buff. Pyron tries to get the steal, but he's going to get his ult stolen away and get picked off. Now it's onto Reversio, trying to get the trade back kill onto Justin, not going to get it. Dawning Shadow misses as well, so nothing going for Aqualix. They tried to make an aggressive play on the blue buff, and instead 2 people fall.
Reversio kind of got baited by that, actually followed the Shuriken in onto Justin, who just before that had death sentenced over the wall.
Oh, Oshawott dodges out on the taunt. Kept flashes in, hits the chains. Whoa! You thought for a moment Oshawott was going to get out. Put on the jukes, but then Silas out of left field picks up that kill. Herald also grabbed by Captain Snarfles. Manitoba Bison now really kind of starting to run over this game, Doctor.
Yeah, and a lot of it is the Silas. And, we keep talking about Silas because keeps getting kills here and there and, surviving situations they may not have or dodging ganks or whatever. And that's really where the champion excels and is so strong in these late games, largely because of that Kingslayer. And you can already start seeing the effects of the itemization that ability brings out, as we're seeing not only Hecarim picking up an Executioner's Calling, but also Akali, who is an AP assassin. Senna not super viable to pick up that item because of her slow attack speed. It can be very difficult for her to proc it in an effective manner. And so you're forcing your jungler and your mid laner to spend this 800 gold to try and stop Silas from just healing for 800 every 6 seconds or so. I think it's actually sooner than that. I think 40% cooldown. It's something like 4 or 5 seconds. Like it's kind of silly if you think about it.
Yeah, and I think you're right that this just feels bad. If your Akali is forced into an Executioner's Calling, that's a feels bad man moment. It's not really gonna do that much for her. Like, sure, it'll deny the Silas the healing, but doesn't give her much scaling, doesn't give her much extra damage. And you can look at the counter item there. It's a Magi Soul Stealer for Kept. So these are 2 very different builds. One's Feast, one's Famine. Magi's to Executioner's Akali is about as stark a contrast as you can get for itemization choices on mid laners in this game. Bottom turret gonna fall. We're turning our attention onto this mountain dragon now. It's up. It'll be a 3rd dragon. It doesn't look like Aqualix want to give over the soul point for free. We see 2 Maokai ultimates going across each other. The Onslaught of Shadows only connects onto the Thresh. They're going to get that kill. The bullet time causes the rest of the team to scatter. Waves is in the back line. He's going to go down, though. Just not quite going to get the damage onto Alados. Now Reversio goes in onto Captain Snarbles. He's getting the damage out. He doesn't get kept. He dashes back in. Kept stays alive. Uses the stopwatch. Stays alive as well. Tiger Clown zoning off 3 people. Takes forever to go down. It's a kill onto Reversio. It's a kill onto Tiger Clown. It's a 2 for 2. All the health bars are low. Both teams going to walk out. The Dawning Shadow actually going to pick up the kill on the Kent as well. Now there's a re-engage. Alados falls. It's just Captain Snarfles alive. He's chasing down Oshawott. He's going to get that kill. Pyron and Monster Mash probably actually can't take on this Olaf. He is too tanky. It has too much damage. He's running down Pyron with the Undertow. Hecarim going to dodge that one and start running away. The Undertow isn't picked up, but here comes Justin as well. Undertow actually going to connect, so it's another kill. The fight keeps going. Olaf is the last survivor. He is the champion of the fight. And now with the Lantern and with the Olaf alive and the Hecarim dead, likely going to turn our attention to this dragon yet again.
Yeah, and really interesting fight situation there. It was very split up. We saw Tiger Clown taking on the backline of Aqualix, and we saw, Reversio trying to take on the backside of Manitoba Bisons. And both of them reasonably effective had the other side died quicker, right? Like Reversio wasn't able to get the kill onto Kept thanks to the stopwatch, does eventually go down, losing all those Magi stacks. So that's a huge victory for Aqualix. They end up trading evenly on the fight kills, so there's no real harm there, but they lose soul point. That's the biggest downside here, is that now when the next dragon spawns in 4.5 minutes, they 100% have to fight for it. There just simply isn't an option. They're giving over too many stats, too many health bars. It's just something they really need to worry about. And I'm curious how strong they're going to be able to get in these next 4 minutes. Reversio is pretty strong, was able to hold their own very effectively. They had a really nice engage attempt by Purion, who just simply wasn't able to connect on the priority targets, was only able to get onto Justin, but they exploded Justin at that point. Like, there was no HP bar left.
Yeah, and I think we saw that the fight can go Aqualix's way. I think the one thing for them that they have to be thinking is that they had Wavesix in the backline first, and then Reversio kind of tagged in only after that Gangplank was dead. Had they been on the same page and trying to do things at the same time, it would have been harder for Alados and Kep to deal with both of them at the same time, and maybe things would have gone a little differently. So a little more coordination, and that could work out. The issue is that they need to deny 4 dragons in a row. Even if they are able to snag one, soul point means that the next dragon Manitoba Bison get just gives them that mountain soul, gives them the shield, gives them that extra tankiness, and that is a lose condition here for Aqualix. So they're going to need to not make the same mistakes again. Every fight's going to have to go their way around these dragons, and that's a lot of pressure. We see a fight looking like it's going to break out here in the bottom lane. The taunt's going to connect onto Wavesix. Justin is here as well. Skankplank's going to do everything he can, but that's probably not going to be enough. The teleport channel's in. The Dawning Shadow actually can keep Wavesix alive. Justin has to flash out. The Sand United goes down onto that thresh to keep him alive. Wavesix almost gets out. Finds an Alados, though. One auto attack with Esports gets the kill. Reversio gets the revenge kill onto the Gangplank, but he's going to fall. The Medjai stack's coming back in for Kep. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of the Manitoba Bison.
They had the right idea. I should say the Manitoba Bisons had the right idea.
Well, here's a fight coming down onto this Hecarim. It's actually Silas's Cannon Barrage dropped this time. They're chasing after him, but the Blast Cone going to do enough. Not enough for Captain Snarfles to go in by himself. The rest of his team denied by that Maokai.
Yeah, and the bot lane play, Manitoba Bisons had the right idea. They recognize that their top laner is very strong. They send the support down. They try and get the pick off onto the enemy top laner. Shen's not that tanky at this stage, though. Opted to rush that Titanic Hydra. The more damaging option is a choice that they had to make to get to this point, and so they almost died in the 1v2. And it wasn't until the other teleports started coming in, Flash being burned by Wave, to really extend the situation. Even Wave, who almost got away, Elidius just, being right place, right time to secure that kill. After that, though, there's not a whole lot for Reversio to do in even a 1v2. Not that far ahead yet, and it's just really tough for them to keep taking these awkward number fights, which is the design of the Shen. So they want to attack the Shen, but Shen's so far ahead, it's tough, right? Like, they can't just straight up, 1v1 him, because he has so much damage with the Titanic Hydra, now with the Sunfire Cape, and he has so much wave clear that you can't just, shove him under a tower and just try to lock him in. And so you need to somehow make plays elsewhere. But the Stand United exists. So you're kind of in this like catch-22 right now, that you don't have the best 1-3-1 that your composition wants, and you don't have the best team fight that your composition can do.
Yeah, and I think it was really well played by Aqualix given the circumstances to get the one kill that they did. I kind of want to point out, by the way, this Thresh build, that is in fact a Shirelia's on Thresh. We're seeing kind of an interesting support build meta. The items haven't changed all that much, and where we once lived in a world where everyone said, well, just get Gargoyle Stone Plate if you're a support that wants to be even remotely tanky, because it's going to be the most gold efficient item. Now we see supportive items coming in. Shirelia's does mean that this Thresh is going to be frail. We've got a fight going down in the bottom lane here. Everyone's kind of trying to collapse on it. The Stand United, the Gangplank teleported. So Onslaught of Shadow is the first thing going in, but that means that Pyrone is going to go down. The stopwatch out of Kep going to keep him alive while he's on top of the Cannon Barrage. He's going to steal the Hecarim ultimate to get on out of there as well. Captain Snarfles gets hit up by the Reversio E. He's going to go in and clean up that kill, but he's going to pay his life for it. Now Wave and Monster Mash also paying the price. The two of them are going to fall. It's Senna left alive. Oshawott wasn't ever in the fight, and that meant that outnumbered and outgunned Manitoba Bison to pick up another 4-for-1, and now it is only Oshawott alive. He's not going to be able to contest this, and that means Soul goes over to the Manitoba Bison.
The amount of damage that just came out of Misfortune was absurd. Like, holy moly. Like, they've just quietly been farming away. Like, they were 1-1 and I believe 10 or something before that fight. And because they have the Infinity Edge and the Essence Reaver, they just pumped out so much damage. like one auto attack, half health Reversio, who made the amazing dive in, gets the 700 gold shutdown, and then just implodes. Like there was no way they were going to be able to survive that at that stage. No, abilities left. Use the flash offensively and just couldn't escape. But like it's just so heartbreaking because they're trying to make these really proactive plays and they're doing things, what you could call properly in response to getting, bushwhacked like that. And they're just getting outstatted by the opposing team because they're scaling quicker. They're getting item break points quicker. Now they have 4 dragons quicker. And so they're just outgunned at this stage and they need to give it like another 5 to 10 minutes for them to really start coming online. Like we all know what Gangplank can do. We all know what Akali can do. They're just not there yet.
Yeah, Gangplank has just hit the level 13 power spike. That's the one that he's known for. That's when he could start firing off his barrels very quickly. He hit his level 13 power spike after Manitoba Bison picked up the Dragon Soul. It's just too late at that point. You're never going to outscale a team that picks up the first 4 dragons. It doesn't work anymore. This makes up for any scaling differential here. And that just feels pretty bad, there's nothing you can do to really be stronger in practice here, and that means that Aqualix now going to have to just play this better. That's the way that they can win this game. They need to find a numbers advantage. They need to find picks for themselves. They can't just take these all-out 5v5 brawls anymore because Reversio just not going to be hurting as hard. The Gangplank not going to be hurting as hard. They've got to fight through these shields and tanky stats, and that makes an Akali so sad. It makes a Lethality Senna so sad, and it just makes this game tough for Aqualix, and it makes almost anything that the Manitoba Bison do. They don't need to be perfect. They don't need to execute a brilliant game plan. They can kind of just run it down mid and take some fights, That's really all it's going to need in this game. They've got the strength, they've got the power, they've got the gold, and that's really the big brain strat they need. Look at this fight in bottom lane. Tiger Clown showing this Akali what pain is, and now Kept is here. Versio going to try to get away, but there's nothing there. He's just going to fall.
Yeah, that Silas has been a problem since level 1. 22 stacks on the Mejais. There's just no shot at shutting him down. It's no shot. The Kingslayer is too strong. Even if you're able to get your grievous wounds off, the damage behind the Silas at that point is probably too much to deal with as a squishy. We're not seeing Zoni's Hourglass on the Akali just yet. We're not seeing any real defensive items come out from anybody. There's the Edge of Night on Senna, and that's it. That is the only defensive item. And one thing that we haven't touched on at all this entire game is this bottom lane for Aqualix. We said it in draft that it was going to be the fasting Senna with the farming Maokai, and that wasn't it. We actually saw feasting Senna with support Maokai, which is just, in my opinion, straight up backwards. I think the scaling on the farming Maokai is so much more important because you're still getting souls as the fasting Senna, and you're still equal on gold income basically because supports are just freaking rolling in it these days. You're still relevant at that point, but on top of that, we're getting AP Maokai support. They first itemed a Leandri's Torment, which leaves your team without a true tank.
Well, we're on to the Baron now. Kept is just going to go in. He's so strong. He's got so much power. They're going to pick up a kill on Wave before the fight even starts. The return of the fight is going down onto Justin in this sort of the bullet time, going to force Aqualix to scatter. And with them all having to spread out, there is no hope for the rest of this fight. That crit onto Reversio just did so much damage. They pick up 4 kills. They get the Undertow onto Oshawott. This is a Senna with no summoner spells. Going to fall eventually. You see the Shen pushing up in the bottom lane, going to try and start cracking the base. Screw the Baron. We want the kill. We want the inhibitor. And Manitoba Bison really continuing to just run over this game.
Yeah, it looks like they're actually going to try to end. There's still 20 seconds on the mid laner, 15 on the jungler. The only one left alive is effectively the support. But no, they're
Ooh.
actually going to opt into just the inhibitor. They're going to have to fight once again for that Baron. But they steamrolled that fight. Like they just need to wait for their ultimates to come back up, and they can do that exact play again. Stand United's already more than halfway back. The bullet time's more than halfway back. The box is just about available. Like they have no concern winning the 5v5, especially if they can make it this drawn out brawl. Like they have so much healing on their team between the Silas and the Misfortune that they're not really for want of anything. And the Elder Drake's in a minute, but I think that's Aqualix's only shot. Like I don't think they win a team fight without Elder Drake. And I think that the Bisons can easily kill Baron, not only in the minute that it'll take, but still be plenty healthy as well.
Yeah, and they're on the Baron yet again. There is no vision of this take going down. You see the Hecarim getting nearby, the blue trinket drops, but it's just too late. The Baron goes down, the resets are going to start coming in, and that means that the Manitoba Bison are going to be stronger than ever with Elder Dragon spawning in 20 minutes. This really is going to have to be the absolute last stand for Aqualix. They need to take a fight here. They need to get some kills. They have to work through a Silas Zanya's, a Misfortune Guardian Angel, but maybe there's hope. Maybe there's a chance. Maybe they can do it. They've got the position. They've got the posture that they need. They're here for the dragon. Tiger Clown actually pushing with Baron in the top lane. So this is pretty interesting. He's going to arrive into the fight a little late. No one's starting the dragon yet. It looks like Aqualix content to just stand here. But the more they sit here, the more damage Shen is going to do. They need to pull the trigger on something. They've started up the dragon right now. Kep steals the Maokai ultimate. Both Maokai ultimates crisscross. The fight comes in. The Onslaught of Shadows comes in. The taunt is onto Pyroan. The dragon's still at half health. We see Smite's already coming out. Captain Starvels and Tiger Clown all in the back line. The bullet time going to go down onto 4. The kills all come in. It's a mess for Aqualix, and that is going to be a clean ace, an Elder Dragon, and a very convincing forfeit win in Game 1 for the Manitoba Bison.
That was definitely the Aqualix taking a trip to Spain minus the S. Just that last team fight was so dominant from the Manitoba Bisons. Wave completely locked up, not able to do anything except for ultimate. I don't think they even got a single barrel pop to go off. We saw Reversio try to get into the back line, died before the second use of the ultimate was used, though. And then just there's no damage left. Purian, again, going for that Trinity Force first item is relatively squishy. Like even with the Cinder Hulk jungle item, there's just not a lot of beef in that horse. So the damage coming out from the Bison just so high at that stage of the game. They spiked super early. They carried the wave. They tubed the barrel. I think that's a surfing term. I'm not actually sure. And they were just able to keep control of the lead and really push the pressure points when they needed to.
Yeah, and it's kind of emblematic of what went wrong in that game, right? Is that fight wasn't particularly clean, or there wasn't a wombo that made it particularly powerful. It was kind of just everyone throwing their bodies into the dragon pit, stat checking, using all their spells, and seeing who survived. And it really was just Manitoba Bisons deleting people first. The Gangplank died, the Kali died, the Zanyas for that Silas proved once again to be an insanely valuable item. He kept going in and using it just to keep himself going in every single fight. Kept played out of his mind that game along with Tiger Clown. Solo lanes just getting so much value and power to the Manitoba Bison. I
Yeah,
don't
and
think
as,
there was a way for Aqualix to win that one at that point. There was really nothing they could do. It was just a coordinated effort. They needed a numbers advantage, and with Shen pushing top lane, ready to come in with a Stand United at a moment's notice, they were never going to get that.
Yeah, they lost control of the early game and their scaling was not able to come online. I really want to see some different draft choices. I know you and I have touched on Hecarim as a pick in the past and how it can be very feast or famine. I think teams need to just give up on the Hecarim jungle. Like you can see the highlight plays where it pops off and does amazing things. You're not gonna do that. Like, I hate to tell you guys, it's too hard in a lot of the situations you're finding yourselves in. Just pick the very straightforward junglers. Now, granted, a lot of them were banned away this time. Lilia banned away, Graves banned away, Nidalee and Set banned away. there are other junglers out there, and there are plenty that you can run in the place of the Hecarim, mainly Sejuani. Anytime you can pick Hecarim, just pick Sejuani. I guarantee you your win rate will skyrocket.
I'm not sure I agree with the universal superiority of Sejuani, but I think it's generally true that Hecarim often exists as a win more mechanic where if he's on a team that's behind, he has a tough time generating a lead. He has a much easier time taking a lead and making a game run away with it. I think even more problematic is something that you touched on a little bit and we didn't get to really go into detail, but just Maokai's support not farming building Leandries first is a question mark to me. When the opposing team has their only range damage dealer as a misfortune, and you have a Maokai, all you need to do is build tank and then press W on that misfortune. And fights get so
Yeah.
much easier. It's just so much simpler to execute if you just get on top of her. She's never allowed to use bullet time because you can just knock her up and interrupt that channel as soon as she starts trying it. And it works so much better than this kind of backline AP Maokai build. It didn't do anything. It didn't die too much, but that was kind of because it wasn't really ever in the fights to do anything in the first place. And
It did have second most damage on the entire team over both Hecarim and Gangplank.
yeah, sure.
I got nothing else besides that, but that's what my graph here is telling me. So it counts for something, right?
I mean, if you need more damage and you don't need to get onto a misfortune and your team is building very tanky, then sure, but you have a gangplank. Why don't you build tank and support the gangplank so that he can do more damage than you? That's
I
that may be a little too revolutionary is using gangplank as a higher damage carry than AP
A
Maokai
as your
support.
top lane carry? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's questionable. It obviously didn't quite work out for Suning, but I'm sure some team out there can make it work. But yeah, I mean, I think heading into game 2, I think we're really gonna need some difference in the draft phase.
Well, with that said, we're going to go to a brief break here while we wait to get into game 2. So we have a 1-0 lead for Manitoba Bisons. This is a best of 3, so if they can win next game, they will take the series and advance to the winners bracket finals. So one game away from that. Aqualix looking to turn this around. They haven't lost a match yet this season. I don't think they want to start now. So we'll take a brief break and we'll be back with game 2 in just a few moments. Hello, everyone, and welcome back here to Game 2 of the Manitoba Bison versus Aqualix Esports. Oh man, I said the word sport and stumbled. Is baseball a sport, Doctor? That was a question we had while we were on pause.
Baseball is categorically a sport, uh,
I'd
just
agree with that.
because it's universal. The one thing is you just need a stick and a round object is really the other thing. Like it's behind soccer, probably like the most accessible sport, I think, uh, because it's a stick and round object.
All
But
right. Well,
speaking of sticks and round objects, Lilia was banned away.
she was. And actually, the bans were identical with one major exception. Aqualix decided that rather than ban the Graves, they wanted to ban the Shen instead. Manitoba Bison said, don't mind if I do, and locked in the Graves with that first pick immediately. And we see a drastically different look coming here out of Aqualix. They decide Misfortune, good and powerful enough that they want to blind pick it. They'll also snag the Ornn to send that in top lane, get some scaling power. So Bison immediately counter it with the Ornn counter. It is Mordekaiser. He takes the Goat Man into the Death Realm, and Ornn doesn't really love that too much. It's
No.
not an unwinnable matchup for Ornn, but that is a powerful counter pick to have early on in the draft for Manitoba Bison.
Yeah, and it's pretty much the go-to, right? Because you just get so much agency in the lane. You can really control the tempo, get, first option on the rotations and things like that. And it's just such a counter because it can be very difficult for the Ornn to get away. Plus, you just cancel out the ultimate, basically. Like you just, guarantee yourself that. You also guarantee yourself smite fights just by being able to take the enemy jungler to the Shadow Realm. Overall, it's a strong pick. Basically is like resorted to a counter now, though. We don't see many more blind Mordekaisers these days. And this draft is wonky, right? Like we're getting Senna picks,
Yeah.
Bard picks. Like I'm really curious what the AQ jungler is going to be at this point because without them picking at first rotation, this jungle pool is about to shrink a lot.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things to think about and questions to ask. Bard is a pick I don't think we would have expected as a blind support pick before the pinch. That's kind of one of those things that when you've already given up the top lane counter pick, you might want to hide that a little longer. And then the other question mark here is that the Manitoba Bison, they saw the Senna and picked Misfortune into it, figuring that would be a good lane for them. Now, seeing the Misfortune, they pick the Senna into it, thinking that's a good lane for them. So I think the Manitoba Bison are asserting that the Senna in this Fortune lane is a wash. They're perfectly fine playing either side of it, which is not
Yeah,
something
and
you often see. Normally teams have their specific counters and they don't counter a pick with their counter to that pick. Did I
Yeah, and
say that right?
it's just I think so. But it's also just really interesting that these are the two marksmen that the teams have kind of locked onto. We've talked at length about how strong Ezreal is. There is still the Caitlyn. I've seen Draven popping up in certain scenarios, but I understand that's very niche. But it's just interesting that Senna, who hadn't been seeing a lot of play recently, neither did Misfortune really. But they're the two that these teams just seem super locked in on. And obviously they're both very good. I think that the Senna for Bisons, I think it is going to be a feasting Senna once again. And I'm just mind boggled at who they're actually
Oh,
going to put into the Bard. And I love that jungle pick. It's not very good anymore, but I still love it regardless.
I can say as a Karthus jungle main that the recent couple patches where they've gutted him feel pretty
It's pretty
bad.
tough.
They
It's pretty
uh
tough out there.
they were getting mad at Karthus being good in bottom lane, and so they destroyed the champion. They kind of just erased him. And locking him in right now is it's an idea. Uh I can say I would not want to play Karthus right now. He is my highest mastery champion, and I'm not comfortable playing him because he feels like a paperweight with
I
a
did see
nifty
Cadril
passive.
playing him today, though, so there's must be some benefit
Yeah, I
if
mean,
it yeah, I
regardless.
definitely agree with you, Cole, that it is just very tough right now to play that champion because he's been constantly nerfed time and time again, and they've nerfed certain portions of him that make his jungle just really tough to navigate, especially into an extremely high tempo jungler. Like Graves is just going to have so much free reign in the jungle this time, that it's going to be really problematic because of how much priority these individual solo lanes have, right? Like Mordekaiser can constantly push the Ornn in. Galio can get bullied by the Lucian, but not so much that it's a problem because post six you get the hero's entrance, and Graves can just do whatever he wants. Like he can run into the jungle, take raptors, take Krugs, fight you at your buff, and he's still gonna get friends there before you can.
And for those of you who are not aware, the changes to Karthus have been that his Q's AP ratio has been reduced from 35% to 30%. Then they reduced his armor by about 50, and then they reduced the base damage on his Q by another 5. And so skews the little Skittle lay waste. It's what does most of his damage. So successive nerfs to its damage, as well as a nerf to his armor, means that he just kind of has a bad time in general. The jungle camps hit him harder. He clears them a little slower. Getting all the little tiny raptors takes an extra Q, takes a little more time. It slows his clear speed down, makes it less healthy. There's a lot that's not quite going for him. But he can fulfill a role on a team. He can fulfill a niche. And if you were planning on counterpicking mid lane with something like Lucian, then having that huge AP threat in the jungle is vital. And when Nidalee, Lilia, and Talia are all banned, you're kind of out of options other than the Gragas. And I think they chose that Gragas isn't really a reliable AP carry. Karthus does a little bit more of that. I just think that it's so vulnerable here. It's at risk of being bullied by so much. If he ever gets found by anyone, Galio just comes in with a heroic entrance, and that's a dead Karthus every single time without fail. He's so slow, he's immobile, he's so vulnerable. And I think Manitoba Bison probably pretty excited to see that pick because it just gives them a win condition. They have Leona, they have Galio, they have Graves, and the three of them want to go find and kill this Karthus over and over and over again.
May I interest you in some fiddlesticks?
Ah,
I
yeah, he's a champion that doesn't get played though.
True. I mean, I have seen him once or twice in some of the amateur leagues lately. But I think it's an interesting option if you are looking for that AP jungler. Obviously, so here's my like pocket AP jungle pick is Diana. She gets very beefy, does a just bajillion damage once she gets, an item or two, and can be a very dangerous late game threat as well for those of you who are looking for your Karthus replacement. But it is tough. I mean, I will not say that this is a Sejuani game because you already got your tank in the top side. But yeah, I think the AP damage is a little tough to find here. And one thing that I think makes it even tougher is the change to Galio Ultimate that's somewhat recent in that whenever you hero's entrance now, anybody within your little circle gets an AP shield as well. So I mean that makes Karthus's life that much tougher.
Yeah, and we're at a level of play where we can also expect Locket of the Iron Solari to get built. It's a pretty decent item on Leona. And that's another thing that
Mhm.
really just makes it sad. It gives a shield to everyone, and when he ults, you give the shield, and then his ult just does less damage every single time. The shield on that Solari is going to be shorter than the Karthus ult shield. So lots of ways to play around him. I think we focused on it enough though. We've got some other lanes to dissect. The mid lane, I think, is something most people should be familiar with at this point. It's Galio and then the Lucian counterpick to Galio. It's not quite as unwinnable as Vayne into Galio, but still very, very good for the Lucian. He always just dashes away when Galio tries to go in, and Galio says, "Hey, man, don't do that."
Please
Takes a
stop.
lot of auto attacks on the way out. So we know that one. Mordekaiser into Ornn, kind of the same deal. Mordekaiser beats the Ornn up. It's more Ornn, if played well, doesn't die in that lane, but if played poorly, will die repeatedly. So we kind of know it's one winning lane for each team, which kind of gives this fun imbalance. But then you've got this jungle matchup, and the last thing to kind of consider here is bot lane.
Bot lane's interesting. Leona we've seen come out as a counter to like enchanters in the bot side, which makes it a huge skill lane, right? Because if the Leon is good, you land on the enchanter and kill them. If it's not good, then the Leona gets poked into oblivion and just is useless. And Leona has this weird mid-game situation where she can either be ahead and be literally unkillable. Like think of the tankiest tank you can tank and then times 10, and that's like a really strong Leona mid lane. And then there's the complete opposite where if you're behind and you're super behind, then you're just paper mache. Like even with your eclipse on, you just melt. And Bard, I think, is this very interesting enchanter that just does a billion damage. And because of the way his Q interacts and just lollipops onto everything, he can be really problematic for Leona in very different ways than like a Thresh would be. Because you can just throw out the Q willy nilly. If you connect onto Leona, that's great. You follow it up with an auto attack slow, and it hurts. And he's relatively, I don't want to say not squishy because he is pretty squishy. But because he has access to the health packs and things like that, he can take a little bit more of a beating than say like a Lux can.
I think all of that is insightful, Doctor. It gives us an idea of what we can expect. And it's fun when we get like, okay, one lane's winning for this team, one lane's winning for that team, and we've got a third lane where things are kind of a little more intriguing. If Leona plays it well, things can go well. If Bard plays it well, they can go a different way. So I think with all of that in mind, it's kind of like this isn't like one team is super hard winning. It's not three winning lanes for three
Mhm.
losing lanes. But one thing to definitely be aware of here is that Aqualix are winning the scaling battle here. They have Ornn, they have Karthus, they have two marksmen. If they get to late game and 6 items on everyone, they have the Giga Tank and just way, way too much damage. And that, I think, gives them a clearer win condition than they had last game. It's just a matter of getting there without giving up a soul at 24 minutes.
Agreed.
Well, we understand where this game might be going. It's going to come down to how things are executed on the Rift. Things can go any way. Once you get on, you can have a level 1 ace, and then, all that carefully thought out analysis goes out the window because someone has 4 kills and then they win the game. So we have to go play the game to find out what's going on, believe it or not. We'll take a brief break while we wait to load onto the Rift, and we'll be back in just a few moments here with Game 2 of Manitoba Bisons versus Aqualix Esports. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Summoner's Rift here for Game 2 between the Manitoba Bisons and Aqualix Esports in the Risen Esports Divine League. This is round 2 of the winners bracket and playoffs. So, best of 3, Manitoba Bison can advance with a win here in this game. Aqualix looking to give them some trouble. Got an interesting level 1 breaking out yet again. All 5 members of Aqualix here looking to see if they can get a bait with this Karthus. We saw Manitoba Bison kind of run in last game and try and chase down the jungler, and now they're going to try and punish it. Captain Snarfles dodges out on the Bard Q, uses his dash to get away. There's going to be a nice 4-man Galio taunt, but the Leona and the Senna are not here, so Kept also going to have to hightail it out of there. It's a lot of damage onto Manitoba Bison, but no kills, nothing major. Everyone's just going to go recall. The real win there is a Dark Harvest stack onto that Karthus.
Yeah, picking up a Dark Harvest stack this early on is actually pretty meaningful if you can get more of them. You know, if that's the only one he gets this game, yeah, it's problematic, but it's forcing the teleport out of Kept at level 1. So they can no longer take bad trades into Reversio, who will have that available to, be, what we call monkey in the lane. Just hit level 2, hyper aggressive, don't play around anything. And
Reversio actually into the mid lane, and Reversio is dead.
It's exploded. Like his health bar just disappeared. I guess that's the danger of playing an AD carry in the mid lane.
That is not how you want things to go if you're the Lucian. The level 2 gank from the Graves, the taunt, because Kept had leveled it at level 1. Not normally the spell you start with on the Galio, but he used it for that invade play, and they took full advantage of it. They got a kill. They're getting some good trades in bottom lane as well. So Manitoba Bison fighting back here. They get the Lucian teleport too. So now things are a little more even. But here comes a fight here. Reversio does a ton of damage. Not going to burn the flash to try and get that kill. I think one more auto would have done it. Didn't want to go for it. Respectable play if you're worried about being camped, I suppose. So now Kep's going to have to go back to base and spend that first blood gold in relatively short order. He is very low health, has no potions. So interesting mid lane shenanigans.
Yeah, that's a really weird series of events.
We've got a fight going down in bot lane as well now. Monster Mash is the focus. He's been ignited. Justin's going to flash on top of him. The Bard does live with single-digit HP. Now watch what's going on to Justin. Going to have to burn the cleanse, but the Piercing Darkness going to keep that Leona alive long enough to make it a 1-for-1 trade. Both AD carries get the kill, but it's the Senna that goes down. Now we're looking at the mid lane. Reversio going to flash, get the kill. Kept flashes too, but doesn't get anything for his trouble. Now Captain Snarfle's trying to clean up this kill, but Reversio ends up in the middle of a minion wave. The Graves is going to flash on top of him. Pyroan is here. Captain Snarfles is down. Reversio lives with single-digit HP as well. These health bars are going so low, but it's working out for Aqualix, and they get a 2-for-0 in the middle lane.
That's something. I gotta be real with you. Not quite sure why Kept flashed forward there. Didn't really have any cooldowns left. It was probably trying to get the enhanced auto attack. I gotta be honest, I have no clue what that play was.
I think the taunt was coming in. It's just the issue is that when you taunt someone with 10 HP, they auto attack you and you die.
Yeah, and you also can't flash taunt anymore. So
yeah,
thanks, Riot. But I mean, what happened after that was amazing. Reversio had just perfect dancing shoes playing in and out of those minions so that Graves wasn't able to get, the auto attack down. Tiger Clown having a bit of struggle on the top side, but I think just big ups to Reversio.
Wave gonna flash after that Mordekaiser. This is not the way this lane's supposed to go, but it is the Ornn making things happen. Now another engage down here in the bottom lane. This is a lane where there are no summoner spells available for anyone, so all trades have a risk of going south, but nothing happening. So both flashes burned in the top lane actually, and then health bars traded. This is a game where being Karthus feels a little bad. All the lanes are trading all the summoner spells. Every single last flash in the game is on cooldown. And if you were an early game jungler, you'd be feasting right now. Every gank has a good chance of turning into a kill. And unfortunately, neither of them really actually on jungle champs that want to be spam ganks are capitalizing on that. Both of them just content to farm away. And it's going to mean that this won't be as kind of lopsided or active as you might expect.
Yeah, and it really benefits the scaling team, which in a way is Aqualix. They have the Ornn who eventually start handing out ornaments. Karthus, for as bad as he is right now, still scales amazingly, just because of between Dark Harvest stacks and being, AP does get a ton of late game damage, especially can be very disruptive because of the death passive. Diving in, going for the whole, Reginald strat of just sacrificing the body for the benefit of the team. Kept going extremely low in the mid lane.
Yeah, that culling was about 2 bullets shy of a kill there. Kept got cold, gonna have to recall again. And you see, now that they've given this Lucian 2 kills on accident, he really is performing exactly as you expect a counterpick to perform. Now we see a play coming down in the top lane. Captain Snarfle's just alcove gaming, trying to catch wave, pushing up. It doesn't look like he's gonna fall for it. Maybe gonna go in. He does use his dash to try and knock up the pillar. The Death Realm comes out. Captain Snarfle's just gonna get to stand here and cheer on Tiger Clown in that Death Realm. But as soon as wave is out, there is the Graves, there is the kill. They pick it up, but good play from Aqualix, seeing the Graves top lane. They say, well, we'll take that Dragon if you'll give it to us. And they trade right back. Kill for Dragon, not too bad for either of those two teams.
No, I think it works out very effectively for what the teams want to do as well. Aqualix does want to scale. They want to take time, the slower game. They want to make sure that they can get that Dragon's Soul. Whereas the Manitoba Bison, they have this very early game jungler who needs to be hyper accelerated, needs to be in these lanes getting kills or just mass farming the map and just getting as much gold as possible to be relevant for as long as possible. And so both teams get exactly what they want there. And so as we look at the next couple minutes, it's going to be seeing who gets the most out of what comes next. We're going to have the Rift Herald spawning in 30 seconds. It should very much go to the Bison once again, as we do see top and jungle ahead. Mid lane's a bit of a wash, but as long as Kept stays alive and has access to that ultimate, can always follow up on what the more top half of the map wants to do.
Yeah, and I think that's really going to be Kep's job here, right? Is the gank went south, the Lucian's ahead. He's kind of playing as he should, as a lane bully, taking advantage of this range matchup, really punishing the Galio. You see these trades just going Reversio's way every single time. And that means that Kep's job, just sit back, keep some health, and be ready to use his ultimate if it's needed. And that's really all they need. If he can avoid losing all 5 plates and he can be there for cross-map plays, then Galio's doing his job, and the Lucian is potentially not going to be as strong for most of the game, but still not where you want to be as a mid laner, down, close to 40 CS and a kill. That's not promising.
Yeah, I mean, minus the kill, very reminiscent of game 1. Reversio was able to get a pretty significant CS lead at a certain point, and we're starting to see that once again crop up. Top side, Mordekaiser's gonna win CS-wise just because he wins the matchup. Bot side is where it starts getting curious for me because, we talked about the Son of Misfortune handshake and, what happens in the Bard-Leona matchup, but we didn't really talk about the 2v2s like as a collective, right? Like, we talked about how early game Leona wants to be aggressive and, take it to the Enchanter and not play these very poke games. Senna doesn't want that. Senna's a scaling carry. She's very low damage early on, mainly because of her low attack speed. She just simply doesn't have the same DPS as any of the other, in that, marksman class, whereas Misfortune has one of the highest early game damages. Like, look at that. Like, that is just one double up into the Make It Rain. Like, that is a big chunk of damage, and you just can't compete with that in a 2v2 situation, because if they ever clash, both Bard and Misfortune are doing damage, whereas only Leona is attempting to do damage.
Well, we've got a play breaking out in the top lane. The Death Realm has dropped in, as has the Ornhorn. The smoke screen dropped a little too early to get the slow, but still going to be the kill. Played very well. You see the cross-map play coming in yet again. Pyroan is here. The Tempered Fate is used, but doesn't do a whole lot. It's going to be up to Alidus and Justin to hold on. There's a teleport and an ultimate from Kept if it's needed, but looks like they're just going to back off, respect the Karthus, and give up some plates and farm. Not the end of the world if you're going to kill and a Herald on top side. This time there's no trade back on Dragon. It's just those bot lane plates. So Manitoba Bison committing to top side again, trading a little bit on the bottom half of the map for it, but still gold, still getting this Grave stronger, and the Herald should help accelerate them as well.
Yeah, and I actually love the play coming out from the Bison's bot lane. They've recognized the win condition of the Karthus, being that hyperscaler needs some time to get out ahead. If they're able to, if they give over a couple kills, it gives that much more gold and that many more items over to the Karthus. Whereas if they just full sail give it up, they have the scaling marksman.
Well, here's a fight in the mid lane. The taunt is going to connect onto the Lucian. The Zenith Blade also going in, but it's not enough damage onto Reversio, and he's going to return fire. Captain Snarfles wasn't able to get in, so it is actually Leona going down. Reversio just hurts a little too bad. Kept went in, got a nice taunt, but didn't have the health to stay in that play, and Justin found himself a little too deep and paid the price for it.
Yeah, and that's that cosmic binding I was talking about in Champ Select, where because of the way it interacts, it can be super devastating for the Leona, who is just trying to get in. But if they are running at you, they're 100% getting tagged by the first portion of it. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to connect to something, whether it's a wall, a minion, your teammate. Like, these things are all like magnets to that cosmic binding. People complain about Dredgeline. Cosmic binding is way worse. And you saw how it just completely stalled the engage from that point. Snarfles just simply wasn't able to be involved. We saw at the very end using the collateral damage, but the health bars were simply too high for that to be impactful.
Oh, here's an attempt at a play in the mid lane. Snarfles and Kep, they still want to kill this Lucian. Got a 400 gold bounty. Reversio playing this game a lot more cleanly than last game went, but avoiding the pressure, juking out. Now we've got attention onto this dragon. Byrowan is here. Karthus is in the vicinity. He kind of has a bad time going for smite steals. He is a slow boy. He can only really walk in. The solar flare connects onto 2. The heroic entrance flying in as well. Pyroan flashes out over the wall. The tempered fate onto 4. Let's see what they can do with it. It's the bullet time from the side. It's the Lucian from the front. They pick up 1, but they're actually not winning the fight. Wavesix is going to fall. And instead of a win with that tempered fate, it's actually a 3-for-1 in favor of the Manitoba Bison.
Bit of a bait there coming in from Monster Mash. You feel pretty good. You're like, I stopped all 4 members, guys. Let's collapse and kill them. And there just wasn't enough damage out. Pyroan's just not far ahead enough. Only has that 1 completed item. And with Reversio going down, shortly after the Tempered Fate expires, there wasn't a whole lot of damage left. Wave getting caught up in the Shadow Realm with Tiger Clown, just always going to lose that matchup. And, there just wasn't enough damage from Oshawott on that bullet time.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is that in these fights with a Karthus, the expectation is that Karthus will be there to do damage when you get a wombo like that. It's the dream for Karthus, really, to be able to see that Tempered Fate just flash into the middle of 4 people, pop a stopwatch, and say, all right, you're all dead now. The issue, Pyroan actually had to use Flash to get out and over towards the blue buff. So when that came in, there was no Karthus ready to follow up. So it really was just this Misfortune and this Lucian. The Lucian got a little too close. And wow, Reversio really showing off there. Jukes the Zenith Blade, jukes the taunt, stays alive. He really could have gone down, but fancy feet yet again. He's playing very well, but I mean, what do you do? Like, if you think in that fight, if you're Aqualix, like, dude, we just landed a 4-man Bartle and lost. Like, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, I think Bartle is incredibly strong and can equally not be strong, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like it is so, like, there's no correct usage. Like, when you look at a lot of other ultimates, like, they have like a set use where it's like take Bullet Time. The set uses do damage, get kills. Like, Tempered Fate doesn't have that. Like, it's so subjective on how you use it and what the best usage of it is. And so for every Tempered Fate, you can have somebody who can be like, well, no, it was good for these reasons, or no, it was bad for these reasons. Just like, this is a bad look for Aqualix.
Yep, here's a gank down into the bottom lane. The solar flare actually is going to go wide. The bullet time going to come out. Alados falls. The Pyroan is here. Everyone is in the bottom lane. That teleport no good for Tiger Clown. He wants to get the heck out of Dodge. All 3 people committing to that play get punished. It's a 3-for-0 for Aqualix. They showed up to that fight. They kind of just wanted it more, I think, Doctor, and it works out for them. An excellent bullet time. Karthus going untouched. And that means that Manitoba Bison going to fall.
Yeah, tons of gold going over to the Karthus. That was definitely a summoner deficit showing its ugly head. You know, Aqualix having that extra teleport there, Tiger Clown coming in. Kept just wasn't in range. Like teleport was on cooldown. The heroics entrance, not a true global, and that's the difference between Galio and Shen, right? Like you have the on command team help. This time though, we saw Wave coming in, Reversio. They were so quick on those teleports too. Like they were not hesitating to help their team fight, and it looked really strong for the Manitoba Bison bot lane. But it wasn't enough, right? Like they didn't have enough damage to cut through the opponent.
Well, here's a play. We see the chase. It's a little divided. We see the heroic entrance going under Reversio. Captain Snarfles is chasing down Pyroan. The focus goes back to Reversio. Kept is here. He gets the knockup. He gets the taunt, and the Lucian goes down. It's a 1-for-0. They're not totally playing cowardly here. It can be discouraging when you lose a fight hard, but Manitoba Bison get right back to fighting. They make an aggressive play, chase that Lucian into the jungle, pick up a kill right back.
Yeah, I mean, their pick comp is so incredible. You saw just one piece of crowd control land and the heroic entrance right afterwards, even though Reversio was able to dodge out on it. Kep still had their flash, so they were able to land that flash into taunt afterwards, combo that with the Justice Punch and Leona. Like, there is so much crowd control, and it just leads to the best crowd control there is, which is death. It's going to be tough for Aqualix to continue to play around that because the cooldowns are going to get shorter, the map is going to get smaller, and they're going to have less wiggle room as these objective fights come to bear. We have Earth Dragon in 5 seconds, and while it doesn't look like Manitoba Bisons want anything to do with it, it's still there.
Well, it looks like Captain Snarfles does want something to do with Reversio. Now you see him, now you don't. Graves is a very fun, fair, and balanced champion. He just deleted that Lucian. What the heck?
Especially when you compare it to, say, Karthus.
Oh no, Monster Mash, you don't want to be here either. Justin's going to take the portal. Don't take the portal. Justin, what are you doing? Has to flash out. Almost falls to ignite. He does live with a little bit of HP. But Requiem is a spell. There goes Justin.
All right, more Dark Harvest stacks, actually. Pyroan's getting a lot of these. If my chat wasn't in the way. Let's turn that off. Look at that. 8 stacks from the Dark Harvest at 18 minutes. Starting to become a threat. Has 10 stacks on that Mejai's. Soul Stealer, by the way. 2 games in a row we're going to be seeing that. Something else we saw a lot of this game was Cull, actually. We saw 3 of them across the marksman of the game. I think Graves is the only one that didn't get one, but unfortunately it doesn't work on jungle camps. So, yeah. It's one of my favorite items, and it is great to see it. It's a bit BM to see a Senna as their starting item, but I mean it's still just one of the best items you can buy in the early game.
It's free money, Doctor. It's not BM. It's just an investment. It's
very true.
You're paying a little bit, but you get a refund.
Stonks.
It's how much do you get? It's like 160 net gold by the time you cash in and sell it. Is that how much you gain?
So it's. Yeah, because it sells for 160. So you spend 450 to get it. You get 1 gold per minion for the first 100 minions, and then you get a 350 gold bonus. And then it sells for 160. So
it's 160 plus on gold. That's worth stonks.
It's quite literally one of the most gold efficient items in the game because you just get more. Like there's no other item in the game where like you buy it and it's like value grows, right? Like every other item is buying a car. Buying a Cull is buying a house.
Yeah, well, we've got to play looking towards top lane. Kep gets cold, decides he actually doesn't want to run away from it. It's because Captain Snarfles is there, uses the Solar Flare to try and catch Reversio. He's got a dash to get on out of there, though, so no big deal. There's a bullet time in the mid lane. Alador's going to have to go back to base. Oshawott just asserting dominance with that one, and there is only the Senna there to hold the wave, so trying to get some pressure and crack that turret. It is getting very low, and it is actually going to fall as well, so Oshawott with a good heads-up play, you see everyone on top side, you see the Mordekaiser on bot side, there's no answer, so why not pop the ultimate and go for something, and it gets them that mid-inner turret.
Yeah, we're starting to see a the Misfortune really come online. And I said it when we had Elitius on the Misfortune last game, where they were secretly, ahead, where they, spent a lot of time farming. They didn't get a ton of kills or anything like that. And this is kind of similar, except Oshawott not really quiet about the farming game. Has a 70 CS lead, has gotten solo tower gold in the mid lane, and just hurts.
Goodbye Kept is unfortunately the name of that game. Here's a teleport from the Mordekaiser. It's going to get canceled by the Ornhorn. I'm not totally sure exactly where that one was going. I actually didn't catch it, but I think Tiger Clown might be happy it got canceled.
Yeah, he was teleporting directly to the tower that fell basically immediately after it was canceled. So yeah, probably feeling pretty good about that cancel. Other than the cooldown, I guess.
Well, it is still a kill on Kept. Aqualix were there. They kind of collapsed in, used the magical journey to get into a sneaky angle, and then just collapsed onto that Galio and took down that top outer turret. So they do have a 4-2 turret lead, which is a pretty big deal. And wow, Pyroan detects. He just felt like there might be a Mordekaiser there. I think it's probably because of the pink ward and the pixel brush that he had an idea that he was there. Drops the wall, drops the skittle, make sure he doesn't walk into certain death. I think it goes without saying that if Karthus face checks into Mordekaiser, Mordekaiser is teaching Karthus who the real death fanboy is.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because they're both bandmates, right? Like they spend a lot of time together, and I'm actually loving the itemization from the 80 carries of Aqualix. They're literally identical up until the boots, like right, like they both have Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver, QSS. Like they are prepared to do damage and escape the Death Realm, and there's no real problem with it either, right? Like that's exactly what you need to be doing in this situation.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that as well. I mean, you really don't want to go into the Death Realm. QSS, make sure it doesn't happen, but it does give Tiger Clown, he does still have targets. He doesn't really want to go for Ornn anymore because with the Abyssal Mask, it's going to be good. Tiger Clown going to get picked out, though. He's going to have to drop the Death Realm. The Tempered Fate affects the Death Realm? I didn't know that happened, but Tiger Clown now chasing down Monster Mash. Getting very low. The Solar Flare actually going to secure that kill. Now Wave 6 falls. Now Pyroan falls. It's only one kill back onto Justin for the time being. Kept is going to pop the Zanyas. He's surrounded 2v1, flashes out, goes over the Karthus passive, but Pyroan is timed out at that exact moment. Now Reversio trying to chase a kill, but outnumbered. It's going to be a 3-4-1 and a dragon in favor of the Manitoba Bison.
Yeah, and so the reason the Tempered Fate there was that it was actually Monster Mash who ended up in the Death Realm, whether on purpose or not.
In the Death Realm.
Yeah, so like I said, because of where Wave and Mash were like right on top of each other, I don't know if that was actually intentional from Tiger Clown or if they just kind of clicked the other fat body on the rifts. But yeah, so pretty much invalidating there. The problem is the rest of the team fight happened, and we're seeing so much AoE and so much team fight potential out of this Manitoba Bison squad between the Graves, the Galio, and the Leona that we're seeing Aqualix run into one of those key faults of a double marksman composition in that you're pretty squishy and you don't have a lot of AoE damage. Oshawott wasn't able to really set up and get the best bullet time. Reversio, while surviving, was kind of, off put from the map, wasn't able to just, stand and let loose, whether it was because they didn't have their support or because Wave just wasn't in the best position to stop all that. Because when you look at the team fight as it broke out, we saw Tiger Cloud, Wave, and Monster Mash on the bottom side of the team fight at the mouth of the river, and the rest of Manitoba Bisons were coming from the Dragon Pit, which meant that Oshawott and Reversio were closer to danger than their tank was.
Well, here's an attempted pick onto Monster Mash. The Magical Journey going to get him out the safe. I think I wanted to point out one more thing about that fight. Sorry, I thought the Bard might go down there. He ended up getting out just in the nick of time. But it's kind of one of those issues of trying to get a pick on a Mordekaiser. Is Tiger Clown, were he literally any other champion in League of Legends, would have been out of position there. But the issue with Mordekaiser is you send 4 people to fight him, and it's just turned into a 1v1. And when it's a 1v1 with the Bard support, he wins that. And so even in a best case scenario, you're trading 1 for 1. And in a worst case scenario where the Galio and the Leona and the Senna are dropping huge AoE ultimates on top of the rest of your team, you're actually losing the pick entirely because Mordekaiser stalls for time while the rest of his team cleans up. Now we see a Baron going down. Monster Mash drops a pink ward on it relatively early on. Manitoba Bison actually not stopping it immediately. The Tempered Fate going to hit the Baron. Everyone is now here. I think this means that they have to respect it and back off. The Ornhorn comes out. It's going to get redirected and knock up 3. There's not a whole lot of follow-up for that. Tiger Clown actually going to root 3 in. Wave now in the backline. A Solar Flare connects onto 2. That's going to be so much value. There's a huge shield from Leona as well to deny the bullet time any damage. Kept is chasing down. Pops the Zanyas to keep himself alive. The rest of the team is going up, so Kept is going to fall. But in the meantime, the chase is on to Monster Match. The Requiem comes out. It's going to be another kill onto that Bard. Reversio, Oshawott, and Pyroan all stay alive. Right now, it's a 2-for-1. I think Manitoba Bison got a little too distracted by that Bard. And now we have a pause.
Yeah, the Bard at the end there really distracting them from the team fight as a whole. Really kind of saves that there, because if you look at the health bars of the remaining members of Aqualix, they're not super high. We have Karthus and Misfortune at about half HP. Lucian does have full, but he's still Lucian. He's pretty squishy. But I mean, that team fight has a lot of layers to it. You know, we saw the teams fighting over vision control, around the upper half and the Baron pit itself. And something that this, Bison squad really excels at is healing once again, because they have the feasting Senna. Those piercing darknesses heal for a lot. We are seeing the jungle item completed for, the jungler. Obviously it's very well in the game, but that's giving him like HP back, and so he's not really wanting for anything on the Baron. And so they can toy with the Baron. They can start it, stop it, start it, stop it, because they'll always have that piercing darkness keeping them top off HP wise. Whereas if the Aqualix squad was trying to do it, the healing from the Bard just isn't the same. And so once we start seeing Aqualix try to come up in the river and try and stop this, they're forced to, throw out the Tempered Fate to get them off the Baron. But even then, the Bisons didn't really seem deterred. They were like, all right, we're going to keep hitting it as soon as it comes up, keep healing up, and we're going to force you guys to make an engagement. And we see Wave actually hit an amazing engage there. The 3-man Bison Horn completely setting up for a huge team fight. The problem is they were just too far away, because the fear of the counter engage from the Galio Leona is insane. Like, there is so much to worry about in that situation. They go for it anyway, and they get a really nice 2-for-2 and, ward off the Baron. But I mean, that could have been disaster for the Bisons at that exact moment had the rest of the team been closer.
And I think the two biggest things that just went extremely well for the Bison there, despite being engaged on, is that we saw a Dawning Shadow through the entire team, and that shield just denied bullet time damage. It just kept it from doing anything. The shield was huge, and bullet time barely was able to break through it. And the other thing was that while that Ornn got that good engage, it was Justin getting a 2-man Solar Flare onto, I believe, Pyroan and Oshawott. And so with 2 carries stunned way out of the fight, it just meant that Wave had to stay alive longer than he's able to. And that cost him his life and made that fight a lot worse. The ZD team's now looking towards this dragon. It's going to be a fight onto Justin. Pops the Gargoyle Stoneblade, has to flash away. Pyroan flashes after him, chasing in. Justin goes back in. He's a madman. He falls for it. Now Tiger Clown is on the flank. He's the focus. He's going to pop the Death Realm, but there's a QSS from Reversio. Kept goes in. The bullet time hits no one. This is a very messy fight on all fronts. Kept now trying to get himself out. Flashes over the wall. Monster Mash chases with a Bard portal. Kept goes back in as well. Pops the Zanyas. Falls to a well-timed Karthus Q. Manitoba Bison, they got out and kept using their spells to return to the fight. It cost Kep and Justin their lives. It's going to cost them this dragon as well.
This is so point. We're seeing both teams up to this point going 2-for-2 on dragons, excuse me. But you're right. Like, they kept re-engaging when they had the opportunity to escape. That should have just ended at Justin. Once Justin dies, they should have just full sailed, fallen back. But we saw Tiger Clown going for the flank and getting caught out, which forces then Kept to go in aggressively. And even though he is pretty tanky with his Zoni's Hourglass, Proto, and Giant's Belt builds, there's not a whole lot of things keeping him alive there beyond that.
Do we
And
want
so
to
it did
talk
take
about how fast that Baron was?
that was very fast. That
That was
is
a
double
speedy Baron.
double marksman plus fairly fed Karthus, right? Like 4, 1, and 7, 12 stacks. Now has an upgraded Rabadons as well that does have that Death Crown. It's actually the first friendly upgrade, or the first ornament from Wave.
Yeah, and that's a big deal for this Karthus. He has all the items he really wants. He's got the flat magic pen from the boots and the Oblivion Orb. He's got the maximum AP for Rabadons and Medjais, and that's just a
Got a
very happy
Haunting Guard
Karthus.
too.
Sitting at a 700 AP now, building towards a Leandries, and these Requiems are going to be hurting at this point in the game. This is where we start talking about them doing, 800, 900 damage. Level 16 means the base damage is high. With that 0.7 AP ratio and 700 AP, that's doing a lot too. And that can be a threat. This Senna doesn't have any magic resist. The Graves actually has a decent amount, and the Galio provides some as well. So it's a team that's built around it. I really wish we had a locket completed already to kind of counter the Requiem. And Reversio might be in trouble here. Tiger Clown finds him. He dashes out of the hook, but there are 3 people here. Justin is going to land the stun, and that is a dead Lucian and a 700 gold shutdown onto Captain Starfall.
I think Reversio miscounted the amount of people at that push point.
Well,
But
here's a
it's not
re-engage.
over.
We see a 2-man taunt. It's going to be a focus onto Oshawott, onto Monster Mash. We see a nice bullet time coming out of Oshawott. A Solar Flare from the Leona misses.
Paul.
Tiger Cloud goes for the Death Robe and dies mid-cast. So much damage from this Misfortune,
Wait.
who actually disconnects in the middle of the fight. That might be a problem. It's just standing
Ye-
still. But,
Yeah, I saw that for a second. I was like, are they just so shocked that they killed Tiger Clown that they're like not moving? But then the disconnect comes through, and so it makes sense there. But man, the damage coming out from Oshawott and Pyroan right now, I don't know if there's an answer, to be honest with you. They are just exploding the people coming at them. And there's like no real true tank besides the Leona, because we're seeing, AP items from both Mordekaiser and Galio. And Leona just melted. Like there was no resistance there, like just complete newspaper in the rain. And Oshawott's looking scary if they can ever get reconnected.
yeah, I got thrown for a loop because Tiger Clown was, like at 70% HP. You're like, all right, he'll get the Death Realm. I was prepared to talk about what the Death Realm fight was going to be. And in the time, like the quarter-second cast time, he went from there to exploded.
It's
And
technically still off cooldown, which means it never procced.
he popped like a balloon. It was crazy, and that's just so much damage. It actually is so far just a 2 for 2. Alidus is still alive, so this Senna can try and do some things. You've got Captain Snarples alive as well. Those two do a lot of damage, but they're contending with a full health Misfortune and a full health Karthus, and that makes this fight particularly difficult, especially if Karthus is able to use the Requiem. We have the pause over already. He's just going to press the Requiem. We're going for it. That's going to get the kill on Dick Capped. As I was saying, it's doing a lot of damage. And though that Galio is tanky, not tanky enough. So that turns it into a 3 for 2 now. And Pyroan wants more. He is chasing down Alados. He's going underneath the turret. That is a ton of damage coming out of that Karthus. Picks up a kill for himself. And now with Baron and the Karthus walking in, this might just be game. They've got a whole minion wave. They've got the damage from this Misfortune. She can absolutely melt Nexus turrets. Captain Starfall's trying to go for the hero play. But Reversio is here. He's going to pick up that kill. The Nexus is going to fall. And Aqualix snap right back, taking a win in Game 2 and pushing this series to a final deciding Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, I said it at the very beginning. I wanted 3 games across the board. We're getting it at least in our, displayed series here tonight between Aqualix and the Bisons. And honestly, that game kind of made us eat our words, right? Like we were ragging on this Karthus so hard, and they come in 8-1 and 7, 272 CS, almost the most gold in the game, lost it by less than 70 to their 80 carry, and just put the game on their back.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is I have to harken back to that level 4, level 5 gank in mid lane where Reversio had died once and Snarfles and Kept went for another play to try and get that gank. And instead of killing Reversio a second time, instead it was the Lucian picking up the double kill. And when that happened, instead of Galio being ahead and being able to roam and make proactive map plays to punish the Karthus, it was instead Lucian getting ahead, generating what was effectively perma mid prio. And with perma mid prio, suddenly Karthus is extremely justifiable. This Lucian pick made it effective, it made it work, it provided enough pressure that Graves couldn't just go in for invades because there was always that fear of a Lucian collapse. And that meant that Pyroan was able to go through the first 10, 15 minutes of the game with no issues. And then once this Karthus starts getting items, getting kills, Dark Harvest stacks, picking up objectives, farm, money, items, Orin upgrades, and once Karthus is there, Karthus is one of the strongest champions in the game. It has far fewer weaknesses, far more strengths, and they weren't able to punish it in the early game. It was played very well by Aqualix, a really good combination from Reversio and Pyroan to make sure that Pyroan could kind of almost carry that game with his damage, and really excellent play from the rest of the team as well to support that. So I think that was a stronger look from Aqualix. Their draft made some sense. They navigated around their composition's weaknesses, and then they took a convincing win right back. It was a little back and forth, but I mean, once it hit that late in the game, they were pretty much the stronger team, and they showed it. There was too much damage for Manitoba Bisons to deal with. And Doctor, game 3.
We're going to game 3. I think that's Silver Scrapes. I don't actually know what the rules on that are anymore, if it has to be a best of 5 or if it's just any last game series. But yeah, I mean, we're heading to game 3, and I really like the adaptions coming into the draft phase from Aqualix. They seemingly lost every lane except mid and still came out ahead. And they just were able to navigate the map much more effectively, and it does fill me with hope for them heading into game 3, because it means they're not stuck to these hardcore meta champions when they pick things like Karthus and the Bard. I almost said the Brad. But like they have more options, and it makes their draft heading into game 3 so flexible. Like they can get away with murder heading into this last game.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes. We're going to take a brief break to get into the lobby and draft for game 3. So we'll be back in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Divine League Week 2, Round 2 of the Winners Bracket Playoffs. We had a dominant Game 1 from the Manitoba Bison that made them look like the series favorites. Aqualix Esports struck back in Game 2. A little back and forth, but their comp scaled, came online, and they closed the door very, very quickly. So now we are headed into a series and match deciding Game 3. All the marbles are on the line. The stakes, though not the highest, because both teams will be continuing on regardless. They're up there. A win in this match gets you to the winners finals. You're only 2 match wins away from the finals itself. And I mean, that makes it incentive. You want to win. Losing is bad, winning is good. Who would have thought? Anyway,
Just get more kills than your opponent, forehead.
yeah, kill
But
the
yeah,
Nexus to get the last 50 gold.
exactly. I mean, this is double elimination bracket, so like you said, it's not the end of the line here. Whoever loses here today, they do get that secondary chance to try and run through the bracket, but it is so much harder. And for those of you who have paid attention to double elimination brackets in pro play, namely TSM's most recent NA playoff run, they have to play so many more games once you fall down. So you want to avoid that, play the least amount of games to stay rested, to stay, in tip top shape and not burn out. And looking at the ban phase, this is looking pretty much the same. The teams have swapped sides, so it is going to be Manitoba Bisons on the red with Aqualix on the blue. And yeah, ban phase is the same as game two. Actually, the Vlad is out of order. They banned
Aqualix had banned
Shen,
yes. But
and
in
Manitoba Bisons banned it this time.
Yes. So Aqualix picked up a free Vlad ban, and you would think, based on the way games 1 and 2 drafts went, that Graves would be the ultimate priority pick here. Instead, Aqualix say, this orange champion, it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. That
we'll,
is
we'll
that
take
is
that one.
quite possibly the understatement of the year, Cole. I struggle to think of champions more impactful than Ornn. They definitely maybe exist. I don't even know if that's an accurate statement, but yeah, very strong pick on the top side. Does pretty much everything you could ever want in a top laner. Has solo kill pressure. Has team fight presence. Has gifts to hand out during the holidays, and just brings everything to the local family gathering. But it does mean that with the changes, Manitoba Bisons are going to gain access to the Lilia, and they opted to Lilia Senna.
Yep, this is the first time Lilia has made it through the ban phase. It's actually been the Bison banning it in games 1 and 2. They didn't want to first pick it, so they were banning it as blue side. But on red side, they were content to leave it up. I think they were trying to handshake away Graves for Lilia, and Aqualix just said, you know what? Nah, we'll take Ornn instead. And so Manitoba Bison get the Lilia. Graves actually still on the table. It looks like these teams are going to go for bot lanes instead. I kind of disagree with the Senna here. We've seen it lose 2 games in a row, and it hasn't looked amazing in either. There was that one nice Dawning Shadow in that team fight, and it's not a weak pick by any stretch of the imagination, but with the way these games have been going, it's just not the highest value, and Misfortune has been kind of doing more work for both teams with the bullet time. So instead, Aqualix just say, you know what? More Karthus.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like you're picking Lilia, which is this another, kind of hyper farming invading style jungler that should be able to punish the Karthus just as well as the Graves should have. But you have the Ornn once again on the top side, who I don't know if you're gonna want to pick the Mordekaiser again because it didn't really work. Like it worked and then it didn't work, which is the danger you play in the Ornn, Mordekaiser matchup. Ornn will be more useful than you later because there's more targets to bring to the Shadow Realm. And so you need to make those kinds of decisions. And so it doesn't make sense to run that again if you're concerned about getting outscaled, which you obviously are when you're looking into Ornn Karthus. And so we're seeing the Manitoba Bisons not going for counter picks just yet. They are trying to figure out what works best into the top side, what they would really want to get that counter pick for. So as we head into the second half of the draft phase, I do imagine the Manitoba Bisons will be blinding their Well, not blinding. They'll be picking their top laner and then saving that last counter pick for the mid lane. I think it just makes the most sense, gives you the most priority because then you get the counter pick top and the counter pick mid, and it just makes more sense.
And I'm calling it right now. This is an Oriana ban. I just need to get some caster credit and establish that that's what should be going off the table
For AQ or for MB?
for MB. With MB hovering this, I'm a little concerned. Is okay. Nope. But
Is this why you're the play-by-play call?
I
Is
get.
this
They've pinched Oriana on the second ban phase in both game one and game two. Lucian is only really a counter. I mean, he's strong in mid lane, but he's more powerful as a counter pick. And instead of banning the Oriana a third time, they decide that Lucian was so good, even though we could counter the Lucian with something that'll do fine into it. We're just banning it instead. We're letting the Oriana through. And I think that means that Aqualix should just take it, right? If Manitoba Bison have done their homework and everyone's doing things that make sense, Oriana is the sensible blind pick mid laner.
So I'm gonna be honest with this is the one. All right, so that would have been the one option for Manitoba Bisons to not counter pick top because Oriana is so good. Like I think Oriana is one of, if not the best mid laners available right now. It's safe to blind. It beats a lot of her counters in the skill matchup. It wins team fights almost solo, and you get to protect your teammates. I think the Manitoba Bisons could have done really well picking it there. I respect their decision to counter top and then counter mid, but this gives AQ the option to pick Oriana here and have an absolutely disgusting team fight between the Ornn, Karthus, Oriana.
Yeah, and Morgana, I think, rounds that out really well as well. I mean, it's just kind of another circle, right? Like you're just locking down lots of AoE. Karthus if you call it that. I mean, kind of effectively AoE, but
What?
ooh, um,
Pick Lulu.
blind Yone.
Pick Lulu. Lulu is like Lulu's the pick that somebody like put me on into Yone because it wasn't something I had initially thought of as like a hard counter to Yone. But it's so true because as soon as you go into Wraith form, you just get polymorphed and you're useless. Like you have so much downtime, you can't get enough damage out to make the bonus damage at the end really worth it, and you're just kind of stuck because it's not even like you can snap back to cancel it out. But they're gonna pick Nocturne actually. And they're just going blow for blow in this mid lane with AD. I don't want to call them assassins, but like that's what they're gonna end up being.
Yeah, that wasn't where we thought this was going to go by any stretch of the imagination. I think Oriana was the blind pick that made sense, and then you lock in something like Cassidin, or you just get one of those picks that scales well and doesn't get punished too hard. But nope, Yone Nocturne. We're fighting, we're scrapping. This is going to be an aggressive game. Mid lane is going to be the kind of the place where it happens. It's just going to be scrapping and fighting. Yone wants to go in. Nocturne wants to be generating pressure, taking trades, roaming with the paranoia. And I mean, do you know how this lane matchup goes? Because I definitely don't.
I've never seen it, but if I had to take a gander, Nocturne has early priority. Early priority between the Dustbringer and the Umbra Blaves can or Glaives. I think that's still the name of his passive. I know that's actually an item too, but League changes so quickly. But between those two items, his wave clear is super quick. Whereas Yone in those early levels before items start coming in doesn't quite have the best wave clear. I imagine they'll be going fleet footwork and really, just trying to survive and heal up and, make sure that they can farm into this mid late game where Yone can be very dangerous. And granted, this is also if there's no shenanigans where they put Camille into the Yone lane. I don't think that's going to happen because Camille in mid lane is pretty handicapped by not having walls. Um, but just straight up Yone Nocturne. Nocturne wins early, Yone wins late, if I'm gonna break it down to the most barest of the, fundamentals.
We'll have to see how it goes because even then, there's just a lot that Nocturne can do because
Yeah.
he can just leave. Is kind of one of his powers. If he doesn't want to fight Yone, he can just go fight someone else, and that's okay. and, and that's kind
It
of the
does
power.
it does kinda stick to this global presence composition that the Bisons have kinda stuck with throughout their series so far. They had the Shen game 1, they had the Galio game 2, and, the Senna as well. And so something they're doing is they're sacrificing the true global because they banned Shen away, which I think is a good ban. And they're picking a semi-global in the mid laner and comboing it with the global of the Senna. So they still have a lot of map wide presence. It's just that it needs to be executed a bit cleaner. We saw tons of good engages with that Galio, creating picks and creating opportunities. And as the game progressed, the Karthus just got too out of hand for the setup to come together. I think this would have been a really strong Galio game. Again, I know it doesn't quite look it looking into Yone and Misfortune, but Camille has that same dive potential as, like, say, Jarvan. Like, you just, dive into the backside, Hextech Ultimatum, the Misfortune, or the Karthus even, and you 100% guarantee the engage with the Galio as well. Um, and that is something you miss with the Nocturne because you can do that, but, like, there's more room for error, I feel.
Well, Doctor, we're going into the match deciding game. We've broken it down, given us all a lot of information. I know what to think about. I know where to go. But I'm going to put you on the spot. I want you to predict who's coming away with the series at the end of this game.
Aqualix.
All right. I think I would agree with that. I think their composition just wins on ease of execution is kind of a thing to look at. It's something that we talk about a lot when casting kind of some lower level play where like the comp that just has lots of R buttons tends to be a little better at a lower level of play. But even at a higher level of play, the execution of kind of this Camille Nocturne split push comp leaves Lilia, Senna, and Braum a little vulnerable. And there's just so much wombo, so much pressure, so much ability for Aqualix to just say, you know what, screw your split pushy stuff. We're taking a fight and killing you. And I think that means that they're the ones in the driver's seat and they're the ones that look to take this. As long as they don't get insanely far behind early, they should have this one. So that's our prediction. But things can change. Things can go differently. I say it every time. We'll have to hit the rift to see what's going to happen this match. Can Manitoba Bison pull a rabbit out of the hat? Or will Aqualix take their draft and come back with what you could call a reverse sweep? We'll find out in just a couple moments. We'll hit the rift in a little over 2 minutes. So we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Summoner's Rift for Game 3 here of Manitoba Bison versus Aqualix Esports. My name is Coleslaw. Joining me on the cast is Doctor. We've got more level 1 shenanigans. This is the first time this series we've swapped sides. It's been Manitoba Bison on blue side 2 games in a row. They opted into red this time, so that's worth pointing out. These players are coming from different angles than we're used to, and that means level 1 a little different as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting deep wards again from the Bisons. It's something they've tried a couple times now just to make sure that they're trying to keep track of the opposing jungler. Karthus, I think, has a pretty predictable path just because he is so squishy. But it still makes sense to try and keep track of it as much as possible in case there is a deviation there. And you want to make sure that Snarfles can be responsive to that because it is the quicker jungler who can be more on point and farm faster and gank more effectively. And I mean, look at this. Oh, that ward timing. Insane.
Ward mechanics, man, they're important. You got to know when to ward. It's a great skill, often overlooked, but catching out junglers on buffs, finding a good place to kind of catch people coming from different angles, it's one of the more valuable things you can do, and gives you information. Information allows you to make better decisions. That's sounds a little forehead, you know, like, yes, knowing things allows me to be more informed, but
Listen,
that matters.
there was an entire this is before my time, but there used to be an entire television ad break thing. Maybe it was an ad. I don't know if it was a TV show titled "The More You Know," and it was like little snippets of information. And you know, I don't truly know what it was because again, well before my time. But you know, we used to actually tell old people if they knew more information, they would be smarter.
It's so true, though, Doctor. So true. Knowing more, just better. Any case, we're playing a game of League of Legends. This is playoffs. This game matters a lot. Though there's not too much going on, you know. It's normal trades, normal laning, nothing too zany or crazy happening. We're kind of trying to get a feel for this Nocturne Yone lane. You know, it's one of those things that you suspect neither of them have too much experience with, so though we can think like, you know, Nocturne's stronger now, Yone's stronger later, but things can change. Pyroan gonna get picked off. He just kind of goes in and gets killed, and now Reversio trying to chase, but he has to go back eventually, and he's going to end up falling back to his turret, and that's just a kill. You know, Pyroan just ran it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
I can say about that.
I think Kept is in a strong position because Nocturne mid is kind of an EU thing as far as I'm aware. It's not super popular globally because it is very interesting, and while it's very strong in one sense, the damage output is totally unpredictable sometimes. You know, whether you have lethal tempo available, whether you have your passive available, like these things really add up and, you know, require a bit of micromanaging. Kept being forced away, you know, was forced to flash out. Reversio not quite having the damage at this stage of the game, which is one thing I was really concerned about for this matchup. And Snarfle's flashing in for the damage there, also rocking that Dark Harvest stack. It matters. Like, that is a good chunk of damage onto Karthus at this stage.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a first blood. It's onto the Lilia as opposed to the Nocturne, which is probably the saving grace there. It means that Kept isn't going to start snowballing this lane or anything like that. Kills on Lilia, I mean, you don't want to give kills to Lilia. She's kind of scary, but she's one of those champions that's relatively strong regardless of income, just because a lot of her power and utility comes out of her ultimate, where, you know, you land a 3, 4, 5-man sleep, and as long as you have your Runic Echoes, that's on the table. So, though it will speed up Captain Snarfle's getting there, it's not as dramatically bad as a Nocturne blood would have been.
Yeah, I mean, the Nocturne, had they gotten the first blood, you know, 400 gold, you get that serrated Dirk faster, you get the Caulfield Warhammer faster, you know, hit 6 faster, and you start roaming around the map as this, like, Lilia death squad. It's still possible, but Snarfle's, I actually really like the decision to go Merc Treads first item. It means that if you do end up finding, you know, Karthus, you know, 1v1, or, you know, you're caught out with the ultimate coming down on your head as a halo, like, you're that much stronger in Pyro, and no.
That is a Karthus. He has flash. He's going to use it to get over the wall, but Tiger Clown going to follow. Captain Snarfles actually steals the kill, steals the Gromp, and This is kind of what we wanted to see in game one, where the Karthus gets punished by just early invades and aggression. Byron had no health, very little mana, got found, and that's just insta-dead every time. A good sniff from Tiger Clown and Captain Snarfles to figure that he was there, and they pick up another kill, and that's a 2-0 Lilia, so Captain Snarfles gets stronger.
Yeah, now it's getting pretty scary. We'll be able to get that Leandri's Torment very much quicker, and then start building into the tanky items after that, and just be this, the optimal AP Bruiser build. I do know there are still those that harken for the full AP Lilia, but I'm here to remind you, it's bad. Don't do it. Build AP Bruiser, and you will win more games. That's unfortunate for Tiger Cloud.
Yeah. Sometimes you just miss a skill shot. It's really not that big of a deal. Wave is trying to take a good trade here. He's going to get some help off of Tiger Clown, but there shouldn't be a kill on the table. He gets his grass proc, and, then you're happy, and Tiger Clown feels a little bad because that was half his health that he didn't necessarily need to.
Yeah, I mean, being chased down by Ornn's embarrassing in a way.
Yeah. It feels sad, he is the mage, tank, warlock, wizard, assassin. I'm not going to say the whole thing because I don't want to be here for the next 3 hours, but he does do a lot of different things, and it does feel bad when you're on the receiving end of him doing things that you wouldn't expect a tank to do. But we've got a dragon going down. Captain Snarfles and Justin are two-maining it. They both get a little low, but the smite comes in, able to secure that one up, translate that early jungle lead into some objectives, exactly what you want to see. And it's a good way to punish this Karthus as well that we didn't see last game too, which is, don't let him do things. Don't let him take dragons. Don't let him take Herald. Has a bad time contesting neutral objectives if he's on the back foot. And these things should be relatively free for Manitoba Bison to continue to take as long as they can keep exerting pressure.
Yeah, that double up did like a third of Lydia's
double up
HP. I've said it for a while, and it's one of the most uninteractive spells in League of Legends, considering the short cooldown, the amount of damage it can do, and the fact that it can, in and of itself, zone you off of a wave. It's pretty nutty in reality. But the Cloud Drake...
Gang coming on the top lane. You see Tiger Clown going in. Justin is here, but Tiger Clown's super low. Q's going to connect. Justin just chasing Wave down. The Lilia is on the way. The stun's going to go. Wave is in some trouble. Here's the Hextech ultimatum. The kill goes over to Tiger Clown. That's what you want to see. It's good that they were able to donate that kill to the Camille. Kind of starting to lose some trades. Hold on a minute.
Yeah, wait. I think I just noticed exactly what you're talking about.
Misbuy? Has to be. Spell Thief's Edge Camille is what we're both sitting here scratching our head about. That's a support item. Is this just some tech that we aren't aware of? Like, is there some genius reason that item is good on top lane Camille, or is it DM, or was it a misclick?
It's definitely a misclick. The reason being, let's see, Kep should be able to survive here. But like, the reason there is no secret tech involved is that they have the passive there to disable farming effectively, right? Like if you farm too much, you lose 50% of the gold on minion kill, which just invalidates it.
Okay, he sold it. He sold it.
Yeah, he did sell it for a sheen. So I mean, that doubles up the fact that it was a mistake buy. But yeah, I mean, as long as that passive's there, where it takes away 50% of the gold, it simply can't be built as a farming champion. So yeah. But it does make me harken back for the good old days of Philo Stone and Heart of Gold, where you could get away with building these gold for Ive items as a farmer and just have like 3 items by 20 minutes. Those were the good old days of season 2 when wards didn't have income, and by wards I mean supports. Yeah. And AD carries actually got to play the game. It was a good time.
Unfortunately, no cheesy strats like that anymore. You try and buy an item that gives you money as a top laner. How dare you? Only Cole allowed. We've talked about it. You get your 160 gold of stonks, and that's about as much gold as you can generate while farming. So that's a pretty funny misbuy. I think it's interesting. I want to look at, if you look at the gold in top lane, the Camille actually still up 600 despite that mishap. So I don't think the spell thieves actually cost much in the way of like reduced gold values. So Interesting choice, interesting thing that you gotta think about in a game is what happens when Camille top buys Spell Thieves? The answer is we three-man dive the Ornn, the paranoia comes out, everything piling onto him. He gets a knock-up to block them underneath the turret, but they're able to drop the aggro in time. Captain Snarbles gets a little low, but not too low. Free kill, now a free Herald as well. No objectives or cross-map play for Pyro, and the Karthus just power farming still. So that's just more free money for the Manitoba Bison.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Requiem not having enough damage at that point, not able to one-shot people from halfway point. And we're noticing less Dark Harvest stacks, unfortunately, for the Karthus, still sitting at just the one. So is a little bit behind pace from the game before. But I mean, we're seeing Lilia invading, doing tons of, problematic things for the Karthus. We're seeing, dragons being contested. Is going to be able to pick up that Herald. We are seeing plates 1-for-1 in the mid lane. But we're giving Reversio gold, right? Like able to pick up a plate, starting to get a CS lead. The Yone can start being very scary once they hit 1.5 items. And so not this dragon, but the third dragon could be very scary for the Bison if they can't continue to push this lead more aggressively.
Yeah, well, we see them going down in the bot lane here. Tiger Clown shows up. They don't want to pull the trigger on a dive. It's one of those things about Karthus is that just the threat of Requiem can be a problem. You need to respect it. You need to be aware that if you go for a dive and get a little low, Karthus is going to get the cleanup kills, and that's a worst case scenario. I see a bolt time coming out of Oshawott. That is no good for Aqualix. A little bit of health, but gives up a lot of pressure and means that this dragon pretty much is going to be Manitoba Bison.
Yep, so that's going to be second dragon. We will get to see what our soul will be, which will be either the Infernal Soul or the Ocean Soul. I personally like Ocean a lot, and it backs up statistically, right? Like Infernal does have the lowest win rate of all the souls, and it is going to be the Ocean Soul unlocked there with that secured. And like I said, this next dragon is very crucial for Aqualix. They have the next 5 minutes to get as strong as possible. They don't have to contest it. They can try and fight on the fourth soul.
Oh, here's a fight in the mid lane. We see the Yone ult going in onto Kept. I don't know the names of these spells because he's still a little too new, but not going to get the kill there. Just going to do damage. Here comes the Requiem. He gets the recall off. I think it probably came in before the healing did, but that's just Karthus rank 1 ult does nothing. I think it's like 100 or 150 base damage, and when you're sitting on 70 AP, it does like 220. That Nocturne had like 400 HP. That was never going to kill. So unfortunate, just a little overestimation. And now there's no more threat of Requiem, and Karthus just has to go back to farming. So that's probably a good trade for the Manitoba Bison. Feels bad if you're Pyro and you're like, come on, I just want to kill things, but not allowed. So
Interesting. Soul Shackles coming out there from Monster Mash. Under tower though, it's pretty scary.
Here's the paranoia. We're trying to get a revenge kill here. You see Kept going in, and now you see Monster Mash. Now you don't. That is a Tiamat Nocturne putting in the hurt.
Yeah, this isn't even
dead.
This isn't even the max damage Nocturne build, right? Like for the same amount of money we're seeing built into effectively health items, you could be building serrated Dirks for that matter.
Cool. Uh-oh, here's an invade from Captain Snarfles. The Dawning Shadow doesn't do enough, but here comes the sleep. Pyroan is going to fall. Oh, Captain Snarfles actually flashed out before the Q connects, so Tiger Clown going to have to run in to clean up that kill. The Ornn Horn now getting the revenge onto Captain Snarfles. He uses the W get away, the flash from the Ornn going to make sure the Clap gets that kill. It ends up being a 1-for-1. Something happened in bot lane that's forcing out these recalls. I'm not quite sure what. Tiger Clown now back onto wave, but the Yone is there, so he's not going to be able to overcommand. Oshawott steps up a little too far, kept us here. The Dark Shield is going to be popped, which means the fear comes through. The misfortune goes down as well, and now that makes it 2-for-1 cross snap in favor of the Manitoba Bison.
Yeah, kept also getting the kill on a Monster Mash at the very beginning of that sequence of events, so he's feeling really good. Is not being punished for going the healthier, tankier build of the Black Cleaver, and is really, being able to move around the map. We're not seeing too much being traded. They're even able to get the first blood turret solo onto Elidius. So, I mean, we're not seeing Reversio that strong yet. Has the Phantom Dancer, still losing trades though. And it is due to, the bonus attack damage on the Duskblade. Not Duskblade, what is his Q called? Dustbringer. So I mean, it's tough. We do need to see at least another half item to even a full item onto Reversio before they're really going to be able to start competing here. And with the Black Cleaver completed, even Wave, who is stacking armor right now, is in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, well, one thing while you're talking, just to point out and observe, is we saw that Rift Herald get dropped mid lane. It was a really questionable Rift Herald. I think it was just going to time out, so Snarfles dropped it and said, "Be free, my Herald." It was too late for plates, but it did get a big chunk on that mid turret, despite it kind of being at a suboptimal time. They didn't brick the turret, but still a lot of damage there. Now we see a play looking towards top lane. You see all the on the my way pings. The Hextech Ultimatum is going to make sure that Wave cannot get out. That means he's going to fall. Snarfles is there, picks up another kill for himself. That is going to spell doom for this top lane outer turret. Tiger Clown going to be able to pick that one up in just a few moments here. Mid lane turret also now the look. Pyroan out of position. Captain Snarfles going in. The bullet time going to connect onto Justin. The sleep going to actually connect on Pyroan through the Black Shield. Here comes the Nocturne, the Tiamat, and the Senna doing a ton of damage.
Ooh.
Requiem coming in. Justin should fall, but that's about it. It's a 1 for 2 in favor of Manitoba Bison. Wave actually still on the cool death timer there, so it was a little tricky to make sure. But yeah, they get the kill advantage, and they get that top turret. So growing the gold leads some more.
Yeah, Alados actually able to pick up multiple kills there on the Senna, you know, showing a little bit better this time around than last game. And, you know, is a bit more proactive, able to get into the team fights and things like that. You know, didn't have as much being punished by Oshawott misfortune this time. And, you know, the Morgana, I think it's a strong pick. I think we're just not seeing too much out of it. Just because of the game state. You know, bot lane, bit of a wash when it comes to it, but we're seeing Monster Mash try and roam on the map, try and get more plays out of this champion who is so dangerous thanks to the Dark Binding, and this could be it.
Well, here comes the ultimate from Yone. He's going in onto the Braum and the Lilia. Lilia gets right out. Tiger Cloud gets the Hextech Ultimatum onto Pyro, and this Karthus has no HP. The Paranoia from downtown picks up that kill, kept now in the back line. He's pulling Oshawott and Monster Mash. He's going to fall. In the meanwhile, Reversio is on the back line of Manitoba Bison, causing havoc, doing tons of damage. He's going to have to leave. Snarfle's now going back onto Monster Mash. He was out of position. The team backed away. It ends up being a 2 for 2 now. The health bar is actually slightly favoring Manitoba Bison, and with some healing from Senna, they might be the stronger ones here. Tiger Clown has also respawned, going to teleport back in, so it looks like Aqualix is going to have to back away and surrender this dragon. I think they might be going for the mid turret if they can. You see the pings onto the dragon. They're running back. Reversio comes in. He's going to get chunked out by Tiger Clown, but Tiger Clown going to get knocked up, going to get hit up by the Misfortune E. Captain Snarfles gets knocked up as well. Drops the sleep onto 2. Wavesix now trying to chase down the bullet time, gets the kill, and now it's 2 kills for Aqualix right back. They were divided. Alanis actually went to the mid lane to try and hold the turret. Wasn't there for the dragon fight, and that means that Aqualix are going to pick up the first dragon of the game for themselves, pick up that Ocean Drake, and deny Soul Point from Manitoba Bison.
Yeah, really weird series of events there. We saw at the very beginning of the fight, we saw the 2-man knockup from Reversio. Just doesn't have any damage, though. You know, only sitting on that Phantom Dancer. It's just not very beefy. Now has the BF source, so that'll become much scarier as the game goes on. And the rest of the follow-up from there was actually super strong. We saw the damage coming out of Tiger Clown onto Pyroan, though, just completely removed him from the fight. The following Paranoia just literally removed them from the fight, forced them back to the fountain, and kept just, with the damage that they have, wasn't able to get much more out of that. You know, between Monster Mash and Wave really trying to play this defensive style, they weren't able to take out Oshawott. And the front to back at that point was so much more in favor of Aqualix with that, you know, Karthus passive and the Requiem and just the general team fight healing. There wasn't enough damage coming out from Alados and the rest of the squad at that point.
See a bit of a scrap happening at the blue buff. No one gonna go down. We saw the Hextech Ultimatum, but as soon as Pyroan showed up, Tiger Clown and Snarfles knew they didn't want that one. But to go back to your point, I think it's very true that what we saw there was that Tiger Clown and Kep blew most of their tools on killing this Karthus. The issue is that picking off Karthus at the start of the fight, if you're going to stay on top of him, has really low value. We see a fight going down. It's actually in bottom lane that Kept is going in onto Reversio. Meanwhile, in top lane, Tiger Clown chasing down Wave. The Orn Flash is down. Wave is going to fall. The Requiem comes in probably for the fight in bot lane. It's going to win it for Reversio. So 2 different 1v1s. The mid laner for Aqualix wins, the top laner for Manitoba Bisons wins, but it does cost a Requiem to make sure of that. Now we see some attention going down to the bottom lane here. Snarvels and Justin between Monster Mash and Pyroan. The Soul Shackles come out. Snarvels trying to get out, but it's going to get a double stun. The Glacial Fissure onto only one. Justin's going to fall. That is now a big win for Aqualix Esports, and they are suddenly scaling.
Yeah, we're seeing really interesting map movements come out from the Manitoba Bisons, and the type of composition that Aqualix has can really start to pick away at this. This is an absurdly early Baron. The jungler is still down for 5 seconds. I just don't know if they have the damage, especially with Tiger Clown here. This is not good.
Tiger Clown is here. The Senate is on the way. The Nocturne has Paranoia, so if they get vision, he can fly in. You see the Paranoia coming in. Tiger Clown's going to dash in. The Paranoia comes in, gets the kill onto the Karthus. The Bullet Clown returns the kill onto the Camille and onto the Nocturne. So it's 2 for 1 already. Just so much combo, and that means Aqualix are going to actually pick up this Baron. The Camille and Nocturne go in, but they don't get the Misfortune. They just tunnel onto the Karthus, and it's the same thing again. If you kill Karthus first and stay there, it's not as if you killed him at all in that fight. You don't have a numbers advantage for the next 5 seconds, and it means that they pay with their lives and they pay with the Baron.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't even need Baron on Karthus. He's not going to be pushing lanes by himself. He has no need for a Baron buff. So he'll just hang out with the support AD carry, push mid lane, and let, Reversio Wave just take side lanes. Like, he will 100% take that trade where not only do you kill the enemy solo laners, you also get Baron for your trouble. And with Dragon now in a minute and a half, there's still no soul point on the table. And I shake in fear if Aqualix are able to get 4 oceans into Soul. Like, that is unwinnable for the side of the Bisons at that point. There's so much healing, so much health gain. And I mean, just the mental boost at that point, being able to go, 4 dragons in a row.
I think the game will be over before then, Doctor. You can that's a bold prediction, but we will not see a soul this game. Here's an engage into bot lane. Kept is going in onto Reversio. He's actually going to use a cleanse to get out of the fear. The Dawning Shadow isn't enough to keep that Nocturne alive. Now Reversio turning his attention onto Captain Snarfles. This Yone has come online. He is able to convincingly 1v2. Snarfles now in trouble, goes into the alcove. Can't keep himself alive. That is an easy 1v2 for Reversio, and uh-oh.
If you want to count the Dawning Shadow, that's actually a 2.5 v1, because the shield did come in onto both Kept and Captain Starfles, but it's 2-item Yone. Like, this is just as scary as a 2-item Yasuo in a way. It's not as brain dead as Yasuo, but it's still a lot of damage to try and contend with. And with no armor being built by either member, we're actually getting a Banshee's Veil on the Lilia, which leaves me with concern. I think Boris is taking away the game right now between mid and jungle for the side of the Manitoba Bisons. And another dragon going over to Aqualix.
Well, it looks like they're considering a fight. You see the Yone dashing away with the Black Shield. He's not going to be a pick. So, yep, Ocean Dragon goes over. The Karthus secures it. And, Doctor, I dare say, with this Ornn at level 13, with the Karthus coming online, Yone on his 100% crit, I think Aqualix have scaled. I think that's what's happened here, and their comp scales a whole lot harder.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you have a Yone who's now 3rd item is going to be a Death Stance. It's a lot of healing coming through. Misfortune's also getting a Death Stance. So just lots of healing coming through there. We're going to see ornaments start coming out here. Since there's no death cap on Pyroan just yet, I think you just give the Molten Edge to Yone at this point. Once you level up again and you gain access to the gifting, because it's so strong. We're winning in the side lanes, and it's not going to be a point where Kept can 1v1 Reversio again for the rest of the game. That now falls onto the side of Tiger Clown, who with this Trinity Force Death Stance might have a shot, but it'd still be incredibly close.
Yeah, Tiger Clown is kind of the one saving grace for the Manitoba Bison. Camille with more items can be insanely hard to match in a side lane. Her Q just does so much damage. You know, you get the second proc where you can do upwards of 1,000 damage on a basic ability. It's a little nuts. And if Tiger Clown can play well, then that's kind of the way that they have a grip back into this game. Is he's just going to need to make some magic happen. But Yone being who he is means that that's going to be tough. You know, that Camille damage might be good enough if Tiger Clown was only ever matching Ornn, but all that Aqualix have to do is force him to match Yone instead, and then Tiger Clown's not really going to be able to make things happen quite as often. Here's a 1v1 breaking out. We're going to get a bit of a check here. Hextech Ultimatum breaks down into Reversio. The Dawning Shadow is here as well. The Karthus shows up. The Yone is going to be dashing out. This is a full-on team fight breaking out. The Paranoia is onto Reversio, but Kep has to leave as soon as he gets in. The Soul Shackle is going to connect onto Justin. The Requiem picks up the kill on Kep. Yone picks up the kill onto Justin. It's a 2 for 0 in favor of Aqualix, and now they can look to crack the base. There's just nothing working for Manitoba Bison. They take the fight themselves. They think they can kill Reversio, and this Yone, he is full health.
It was pretty close. I mean, it doesn't look it now thanks to the Vamp Scepter, but it was like one Q away from Tiger Clown actually to be able to secure the kill here.
Well,
But
here's
this
a pick
is
on to Captain Snarfles. The re-engage is on to Tiger Clown. They pick up 2 more. It is now Alidus versus the world, but he has to flash away. Senna cannot pull off a 1v5 like this. Alidus is just going to have to watch as Aqualix Esports take down the last Nexus turret. They are targeting onto the Nexus. Captain Justin are up, but it is too little, too late. And Aqualix take the series 2-1.
Yeah, they just came online once that second set of items started coming in. We had the Essence Reaver and the Infinity Edge being completed for both Misfortune and Yone consecutively. We saw a bit of a quicker build path coming out from Karthus as well, opting into that Leander's Torment first item, and just so much early game damage not coming through from the Manitoba Bisons. They had that Nocturne Lilia combo. They went for the safer build path in the Black Cleaver Tiamat version and the Banshee's Veil, but it meant they didn't have as much scaling. They opted into, well, I guess if you want to call it, they opted into the scaling option, right? Like they're not fully committing to early game damage. They're making sure that they actually have a decent mid game, and against a team that has Yone Karthus, you need to be all in. Like you need to be just dealing as much damage as quickly as possible and win the game like effectively pre 20 minutes. And that just wasn't what we saw coming out from the Bisons that time. And once Reversio hit that second item, like literally as soon as that Infinity Edge came in, like there was no more challenging that champion.
Yeah, and I think I have to call back to the 2 team fights in a row where we saw Tiger Clown and Kept both piling on to Pyroan, where they committed basically all of their kits to killing this Karthus. And then Pyroan says, hey, I have a passive, and just returning the favor by pumping a ton of damage back into them once he was dead. I just feel like there was some target selection issues there, where if Tiger Cloud and Kept are piling onto Oshawott or piling onto Reversio or onto someone who once dead doesn't actually do anything after death, then getting those kills is more impactful. And then you can start turning your attention onto this Karthus, onto this Morgana, and so on. And that makes the fights a whole lot better. And I think they also just weren't using the Lilia effectively. We know that the Lilting Lullaby is one of the most powerful engage tools in the game. Connect onto 3 or 4 people, you pop it, and then you have so much time to kind of line the fight up exactly how you want it and go. And instead, it wasn't really being used as a go button. It was the Camille and Nocturne going in first, and that makes Lilia's life harder because she doesn't follow up as much as she starts things. And when you're asking Captain Starfalls to follow up on this Lilia, his early game lead kind of vanished very quickly. And that means that Aqualix Esports capitalized on it. They took advantage of it. They played really well. Dropping game 1, they came back, outscaled 2 games in a row, a very dominant game 3, and now they get to advance to the winners bracket semifinals.
Yeah, I think there is concern for this team as they continue on, though. Like their series tonight was not perfect by any means. Like there were definitely large opportunities for the Manitoba Bisons to come out ahead and not only win a game, but they were very close to winning multiple games here and obviously winning the series at that point. So I think Aqualix are going to have to take a look at these VODs again as we head into next week, where they are going to be in the winners finals. And they need to shore some things up, whether it's their draft phase or some of their in game decision making. Like, there were definitely gaps the Bisons just whiffed on.
Well, the good news is that the Bisons aren't yet out. This was the winner's bracket, and this is a double elimination format, so they can still climb back up. I think they probably have learned a lot from this series. Playing one of the stronger teams in the league can be a really educational experience. And they know that though they weren't able to take the series, they were at least able to take a game. They were able to put some pressure down early game. And they know that like Aqualix isn't undefeatable. They aren't some monstrous, overpowered team that can't be beat whatsoever. They're going to need to improve. They're going to need to learn from their mistakes and get better to come back and try again. But both these teams have more time in the playoffs. We'll see how they do come next week. But that is all we have for you tonight. For the last time, my name has been Coleslaw. Joining me on the cast has been Doctor. Our producer has been. What do I say for what name do I want to call you? What's the name I should? I've been informed the correct name here is Crybaby. So thank you to Crybaby for joining us on this production. And we'll see you back soon here on Risen Esports. Doctor, you want to sign us out?
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next week for the Divine League playoffs as they continue. And be sure to tune in this weekend. We do have a couple more matches as well. And definitely keep your eyes locked and loaded on that Risen Esports Twitter. I do know there are some surprises coming your guys' way, and you definitely are not going to want to miss those at any point. So, once again, thank you for tuning in. We've been here, we've been great. We hope you enjoyed us, and we'll be sure to be back next week.
And don't forget to vote tomorrow. Don't be the person on the team who does an FF at 15 when down 20 kills. Vote. Sorry.